Try touching her and see. The steel fist stopped inches from Isabella Carter's face, frozen by those 6 words echoing through Portland's midnight shipping terminal. Blood trickled from her split lip as 20 armed thugs circled her like wolves, her own uncle's men, hired to silence the CEO who'd discovered her family's darkest secret. But standing between her and certain death was a single man in a crane operator's uniform, his calm voice carrying the weight of 1,000 battles. This is the story of how one Navy SEAL's warning changed everything. Stay with me until the end and comment your city below. I want to see how far this story reaches. The rain hammered Portland's industrial waterfront with the kind of fury that made honest men stay indoors and criminals count their blessings. Isabella Carter's Louboutin splashed through oily puddles as she wove between towering containers at Terminal 7, her designer suit already ruined, her phone clutched in trembling fingers. At 28, she'd inherited Walker Maritime Shipping when her father died 2 years ago. Inherited the company, the legacy, and apparently secrets that could destroy everything he'd built. Container WMSU 447289, she whispered into her phone's recorder, reading the numbers off a manifest she'd stolen from her Uncle Richard's office. Logged as agricultural equipment, but the weight distribution is all wrong. The refrigeration unit is running when it shouldn't need to be. Thunder cracked overhead, masking the sound of her footsteps as she navigated the maze of 40-foot steel boxes. The terminal stretched out like a metal canyon, containers stacked 6 high on either side, creating narrow corridors that felt more like a trap with each step she took. Security cameras dotted the infrastructure, but Isabella had memorized their blind spots during legitimate inspections over the past months. Tonight, she wasn't here as CEO. Tonight, she was here as the daughter who refused to let her father's company become a front for whatever Richard and her cousin Marcus were running. She found the container WMSU 447289, sitting at ground level, its refrigeration unit humming despite the manifest claiming it held tractors. Isabella's heart pounded as she approached the door. The lock had been replaced with something non-standard, something that wouldn't be in any shipping database. "What are you hiding, Uncle?" she murmured, switching her phone to video mode. The sound came from behind, a footstep that didn't belong to the rain. Isabella spun around to find Marcus standing there, his $1,000 suit somehow pristine despite the weather. Behind him, shapes emerged from between containers. 1, 2, 5, 10. She stopped counting at 15. "Cousin," Marcus said, his voice carrying that particular brand of disappointment reserved for family betrayals. "You always were too much like your father, too principled for your own good." "What's in the containers, Marcus?" Isabella kept her phone recording, though her hand shook. "What are you and Richard doing to our company?" Marcus laughed, a sound without humor. "Our company? Bella, you inherited a throne you never earned. You sit in board meetings talking about legitimate shipping routes while the real money flows around you." He stepped closer, and the men behind him followed like a tide. "Your father knew." He turned a blind eye because he understood that sometimes survival means getting your hands dirty. "You're lying." But even as Isabella said it, pieces fell into place. Her father's mysterious trips, containers that moved through the terminal without proper documentation, the way Richard had pushed for her to take a ceremonial role after her father's death, to let him handle the operational complexities. "Hand over the phone, Bella." Marcus extended his hand. "Delete whatever you've recorded, go back to your penthouse, and pretend tonight never happened. You can keep your CEO title, keep the legitimate side of the business. Everyone wins." Isabella took a step back, her heel catching on a rail tie. "There are people in those containers, aren't there? That's why the refrigeration—" Marcus moved faster than she expected, his hand cracking across her face with enough force to split her lip. Isabella tasted copper as she stumbled, her phone flying from her grip to skitter across wet concrete. "Wrong answer," Marcus said. The thugs closed in. Isabella recognized some of them, dock workers she'd seen around the terminal, men who'd tipped their hard hats to her during inspections. Now they looked at her like she was cargo to be disposed of. "Please," she said, backing against the cold steel of container WMSU 447289. "Marcus, We're family. Family! Richard's voice boomed as her uncle emerged from the shadows, his bulk filling a custom-tailored overcoat. Family doesn't sneak around in the middle of the night. Family doesn't betray blood for principles. Dad built this company honestly. Your dad built shit, Richard spat. I built the empire. I made the connections. I turned a dying shipping company into something that matters. And if that means moving special cargo for special clients, then that's the price of survival in this business. One of the thugs picked up Isabella's phone, examining it before crushing it under his boot. The sound of breaking glass and circuits seemed to echo in the canyon of containers. No witnesses, Richard said quietly. Make it look like an accident. CEO, working late, tragic fall from a container stack. The rain will wash away anything inconvenient. The lead thug, a mountain of a man with facial scars that told their own stories, stepped forward. His fist drew back, aimed at Isabella's face, a blow that would be the beginning of the end. Try touching her and see. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, calm as still water but carrying an undertone that made everyone freeze. The lead thug's fist stopped inches from Isabella's face as head swiveled, searching for the source. A figure stepped from between two containers, just a man in a crane operator's coveralls, a hard hat tucked under one arm. He wasn't particularly tall, maybe 6 feet, with the kind of build that suggested function over form. Brown hair cut military short, streaked with premature gray. Eyes that remained steady despite being outnumbered 20-1. This is private business, Richard said. Walk away, and you might make it home to whatever sad little life you have. The man, his coveralls read D. Hayes, didn't walk away. Instead, he moved closer, his gait unhurried, like he was strolling through a park rather than into a potential massacre. Can't do that. See, I've got a little girl at home, 7 years old, and if I walk away from this, I won't be able to look her in the eye tomorrow. Marcus laughed. You're going to die for a stranger's principles? For her? He gestured dismissively at Isabella. No, Daniel Hayes said, stopping about 10 feet from the group. But I'll fight for them. There's a difference. The lead thug turned from Isabella, sizing up this new problem. You know what? Let's make this educational. You can watch what happens to her, then it's your turn. Daniel tilted his head slightly, a gesture Isabella would later recognize as calculation. Distance, threats, escape routes, all processed in a heartbeat. All right. But before we do this dance, you should know something. I spent 8 years in the Navy. SEAL Team 3. Afghanistan, Iraq, places that don't officially exist. I've got permanent ringing in my left ear from an IED in Kandahar and a titanium plate in my shoulder from a sniper in Mosul. He paused, letting that sink in. I'm telling you this not to brag, but so you understand that what happens next isn't personal. It's just muscle memory. The thugs exchanged glances. Even in the bad light, Isabella could see uncertainty creeping into their faces. Bullshit, the lead thug said, but his voice carried less confidence. If you were a SEAL, what are you doing operating cranes at a shipping terminal? Paying for my daughter's medical bills, Daniel said simply. Turns out the VA doesn't cover everything, and crane operators with hazardous environment certifications make good money. He rolled his shoulders, a subtle preparation. Last chance. Everyone walks away. The lady comes with me. You report to Mr. Walker that the situation got complicated. Nobody bleeds tonight. Richard stepped forward, his face flushed with rage. You think you can threaten us? You have no idea who you're dealing with. The connections I have? Richard Walker, Daniel interrupted. 57 years old, lives at 4427 Skyline Boulevard. Wife Rebecca, currently at her sister's in Seattle for the weekend. Son Marcus, standing right there. You drive a blue Tesla Model S, license plate WALKER1. Your mistress lives in the Pearl District, apartment 23B. You meet her Tuesdays and Thursdays while telling your wife you're at the country club. Richard's face went from red to white. How? I operate the crane that loads your special containers, Daniel said. The ones that come in at night. The ones with unusual manifests. The ones that sometimes make sounds that containers full of agricultural equipment shouldn't make. His voice hardened. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. The question is, do you know who you're dealing with? The silence stretched, broken only by the rain drumming on steel and concrete. Isabella held her breath, blood still trickling from her split lip, watching this impossible standoff. One man against 20, and somehow, impossibly, the 20 were hesitating. Marcus made the decision. Kill them both. Start with him. The lead thug lunged forward, his massive fist cutting through the rain-filled air. Daniel moved like water, fluid and inevitable. He stepped inside the arc of the punch, his hand coming up to redirect the thug's momentum while his knee found the man's solar plexus. The thug folded, gasping, and Daniel's elbow found the precise point at the base of his skull that sent him into unconsciousness. 1 second, one man down. The dam broke. They came at him in a rush, some pulling knives, others relying on fists and feet. Daniel moved through them like a ghost, never where their attacks expected him to be. He didn't fight with the showy techniques of movies, no spinning kicks or elaborate throws. Instead, he employed an economy of motion that was terrifying in its efficiency. A throat strike here, a knee destruction there, pressure points and joint locks applied and released in heartbeats. But there were too many. A knife found his ribs, slicing through coveralls and skin. A fist connected with his jaw, snapping his head back. They were wearing him down through sheer numbers, and Isabella could see him slowing, could see the inevitable outcome approaching. She had to do something. Isabella spotted a piece of rebar near the container, grabbed it, and swung at the nearest thug who was raising a crowbar toward Daniel's back. The impact sent vibrations up her arms, and the man crumpled. But her intervention cost precious seconds. 2 men grabbed her arms, slamming her back against the container. Enough, Richard's voice boomed. He held a gun now, a compact pistol that looked obscene in the fluorescent lighting. He aimed it at Daniel, who stood breathing hard, blood running from multiple cuts, surrounded by groaning bodies, but still outnumbered. Impressive, but bullets don't care about your training. Daniel raised his hand slowly, his eyes never leaving Richard's. You shoot me. You bring heat you don't want. Crane operator goes missing. Maybe nobody cares. Crane operator with a military record gets shot at the terminal, and suddenly you've got NCIS asking questions. Self-defense, Richard said. Disgruntled employee attacked the CEO and her family. We had no choice. Except there's a problem with that story. Daniel's voice remained steady despite the gun pointed at his chest. I triggered the silent alarm when I saw your boys converging on Ms. Carter. Port Authority and Portland PD are already en route, maybe 5 minutes out. He smiled, the expression that didn't reach his eyes. You could shoot us both, try to clean up 20 witnesses, and stage a scene in less than 5 minutes. Or you could walk away and we all pretend tonight was a misunderstanding. Isabella heard it then, sirens in the distance growing closer. Richard's face cycled through emotions, rage, calculation, fear. The gun wavered. Marcus grabbed his father's arm. We need to go. Now. This isn't over, Richard said, lowering the gun. You've made an enemy tonight, Mr. Hayes. Both of you have. Get in line, Daniel replied. Richard and Marcus barked orders, and their men, those still conscious, began dispersing into the maze of containers. In 30 seconds, Isabella and Daniel were alone, except for the unconscious thugs who wouldn't be answering questions anytime soon. Daniel leaned against a container, one hand pressed to his bleeding ribs. You okay? Isabella touched her split lip, her hand still shaking. You saved my life. You saved mine too. That rebar shot was well timed. He straightened as the sirens grew louder. When the cops get here, you tripped in the dark. I heard you call for help and came to investigate. We found these men trying to rob you. Keep it simple. But the containers, the trafficking, without your phone, without evidence, it's your word against theirs. And they own half the police force. Daniel winced, adjusting pressure on his wound. This isn't over, but tonight isn't the night to fight that battle. The police cars screeched into the terminal, lights painting everything in reds and blues. Officers emerged with weapons drawn, taking in the scene. Unconscious men, a bleeding crane operator, and a CEO with a split lip. As they gave their statements, Isabella noticed how Daniel managed to sound completely believable while revealing nothing of substance. He'd found Miss Carter being accosted by unknown assailants. He'd intervened. They'd fled when they heard sirens. No, he didn't recognize any of them. Yes, he was willing to press charges if they were caught. 2 hours later, after paramedics had stitched Daniel's ribs and checked Isabella for a concussion, they stood in the terminal's parking lot. Dawn was breaking over Portland, painting the industrial landscape in grays and golds. "Thank you," Isabella said. "I don't even know how to—" "You want to thank me?" "Drop this. Whatever you think you know about your uncle's operation, forget it. Take the CEO's salary, live your life, and stay away from the dark corners of your family's business." Isabella's jaw set with determination. "I can't do that. There are people in those containers, human beings." Daniel studied her for a long moment. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "Would you? If it was your father's company, your family's legacy being used for something this evil?" He sighed, and in that sound was the weight of every compromise he'd made since leaving the military. "There's a cafe on Burnside. Rosie's. I take my daughter there Sunday mornings for pancakes. If you happen to be there this Sunday around 9, and if you happen to have a concrete plan that doesn't involve getting us both killed, I might listen." He turned to walk away, then paused. "Your father, did he really not know?" Isabella's throat tightened. "I have to believe he didn't. I have to." Daniel nodded once and walked to a battered pickup truck that had seen better decades. As he drove away, Isabella stood in the growing light, blood on her designer suit, her entire world shifted off its axis. But for the first time since she'd discovered the irregularities in the shipping manifests, she didn't feel alone. Sunday couldn't come fast enough. The rain had stopped, but the storm was just beginning. 3 days passed like a fever dream. Isabella went through the motions of being Walker Maritime's CEO, board meetings, investor calls, supply chain reviews, while her mind churned with what she'd witnessed. Every time she passed Richard in the hallway, every time Marcus sat across from her in a meeting, she felt the weight of their shared knowledge. They knew she knew. She knew they knew she knew. It was a deadly equilibrium that couldn't last. She'd spent those 3 days trying to rebuild the evidence she'd lost with her phone. But Richard had been thorough. The manifest she'd photographed had been altered. The containers she'd identified had been moved or relabeled. Even her computer access had been subtly restricted. She could still perform her CEO duties, but anything involving terminal operations required additional authorization that somehow never came through. Saturday night, she sat in her Pearl District penthouse, staring at the Portland skyline. Her laptop showed what little she'd managed to gather: shipping routes that didn't make sense, weight discrepancies that suggested human cargo, refrigeration units on containers that shouldn't need them. Circumstantial at best, nothing that would stand up to Richard's lawyers and connections. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Miss Carter." The voice was female, young, frightened. "My name is Anna. I was in one of your containers 3 weeks ago. The man who saved you, Mr. Hayes, he pulled me out when the container was being loaded. He told me if I ever felt safe enough, I should call this number." Isabella's heart raced. "Anna, where are you? Are you safe?" "For now. But there are others, so many others. They bring us in through your terminals, then distribute us to buyers." The girl's voice broke. "I was lucky. Mr. Hayes saw something wrong with how they were handling our container. He used his crane to accidentally damage it, forcing them to open it for inspection. In the confusion, a few of us escaped." "How many others escaped?" 3. "But there were 20 in my container, the others." Anna trailed off. "Please, Miss Carter. He said you would help. He said you were different from your family." "I am. Anna, I need you to testify." "I can't. They have my sister. If I testify, if I even surface, they'll kill her. I'm only calling because there's another shipment coming. Tomorrow night. Container WMSU 551-823. 43 people, mostly teenagers from Eastern Europe. They're being sold to a ring operating out of Seattle." The line went dead. Isabella stared at her phone, then at the single container number Anna had provided. Tomorrow night, Sunday night, after her morning meeting with Daniel Hayes. Rosie's Cafe occupied a corner of southeast Portland that gentrification had somehow missed. The vinyl booths were patched with duct tape, the linoleum was worn through to substrate in places, and the coffee was strong enough to wake the dead. It was, in other words, perfect. Isabella arrived at 8:45 wearing jeans and a sweater, the first time she'd dressed down in public in years. She ordered coffee and claimed a booth in the back, one with clear sightlines to both entrances. At 9:03, the bell above the door chimed. Daniel Hayes entered, but he wasn't alone. Holding his hand was a girl who couldn't have been more than 7, with her father's brown hair but animated with an energy that seemed to brighten the entire cafe. She wore a pink dress with dinosaurs on it, rain boots despite the clear morning, and carried a backpack covered in NASA patches. They slid into the booth across from Isabella. The girl studied her with serious eyes. "You're the lady Daddy saved," she announced. "He doesn't think I know, but I heard him talking to Uncle Tommy on the phone." "Lily," Daniel said gently, "what did we discuss about eavesdropping? That it's only wrong if you get caught?" Lily grinned, revealing a missing front tooth. "Hi, I'm Lily Hayes. I'm 7 3/4. I like space and pancakes, and my dad is the strongest person in the whole world." Despite everything, Isabella found herself smiling. "I'm Isabella. And I agree about your dad being strong." "He has a titanium shoulder," Lily said proudly. "Like a robot." "Show her, Daddy." "Maybe later, Bug." Daniel flagged down a waitress. "The usual for us, Rosie. And whatever Ms. Carter would like." The waitress, who was apparently also Rosie, the owner, and somewhere north of 70, looked Isabella up and down. "You're too skinny. I'll bring you pancakes. And don't even think about asking for egg whites or turkey bacon. This is a real food establishment." As Rosie bustled away, Daniel pulled out a coloring book and crayons from Lily's backpack. 20 minutes of coloring, then we'll talk about what you want to build at the park later. Deal?" "Deal." Lily immediately became absorbed in coloring what appeared to be astronauts riding dinosaurs. Daniel's entire demeanor had shifted. The dangerous operative from 3 nights ago had been replaced by a devoted father, but Isabella could still see the alertness in how he positioned himself to watch the door, the way his hands never strayed far from potential weapons. "She's wonderful," Isabella said quietly. "She's everything." Daniel's voice carried absolute certainty, which is why whatever you're about to ask, the answer is probably no. Isabella pulled out her phone, showing him the container number Anna had provided. "Tomorrow night, 43 people, teenagers." Daniel's jaw tightened. He glanced at Lily, still coloring intently, then back at Isabella. "You have no evidence, no backup, no legal authority to intervene. I have a moral obligation. Moral obligations don't stop bullets." "Then help me," Isabella leaned forward. "You've already been helping. Anna told me about the container you accidentally damaged. How many others have you saved?" "Not enough." The admission seemed to pain him physically. "Maybe a dozen over the past year, but for every one I save, 10 more go through." "Because you're working alone. Because I was too blind to see what was happening in my own company." Isabella pulled up the financial records she'd managed to access. "Look at this. The trafficking is just part of it. They're moving drugs, weapons, anything with a profit margin. My father built this company to connect the world through legitimate trade. Richards turned it into a criminal empire." Rosie arrived with plates of pancakes that could have fed a small army. Lily looked up from her coloring to pour approximately half a bottle of syrup on hers. "Daddy, are you and Ms. Isabella going to fight bad guys?" she asked innocently. Daniel froze. Isabella watched him struggle between the lie and the truth. "Why would you think that, Bug?" Lily rolled her eyes with the dramatic flair only a 7-year-old could muster. "Because you're using your serious voice. You only use that voice when you're worried about bad guys. Plus, Ms. Isabella looks like she's been crying, and you don't bring people to our Sunday breakfast unless they're important." "You're too smart for your own good," Daniel muttered. "That's what Mom used to say." Lily's voice dropped slightly, a shadow passing over her young face. Then, with the resilience of childhood, she brightened again. But she also said being smart means helping people when they need it. Ms. Isabella needs help, doesn't she? Daniel looked at his daughter, really looked at her. Yeah, Bug, she does. Then you should help her. That's what heroes do. I'm not a hero, Lily. You are to me. She returned to her pancakes and coloring, the matter apparently settled in her mind. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, then pulled out a small notebook. Container WMSU 551823. What else do you know? It arrives tomorrow at 11 p.m. Pier 47. The manifest says industrial refrigeration units, but the temperature controls are set for human survival, not equipment storage. Security. Standard port security, but Richard will have his own people there. Maybe a dozen, based on previous patterns. Previous patterns you've observed how... Isabella hesitated, then admitted, I've been watching the terminal at night. From a distance. Trying to understand their operations. Jesus. Daniel rubbed his face. You're going to get yourself killed. 43 teenagers, Daniel. I know. He glanced at Lily, who was now building a syrup sculpture with her leftover pancakes. I know. They spent the next hour planning, speaking in code when Lily was paying attention, which was more often than not. The girl had her father's observational skills, even if she didn't fully understand what she was observing. Finally, Daniel stood. I need to think about this. And you need to understand something. If we do this, we're not just taking on your uncle. We're taking on his entire network. The cops he owns, the judges he's bought, the international connections that make this possible. We'll be painting targets on our backs. There are already targets on our backs, Isabella pointed out. At least this way we're shooting back. Daniel helped Lily pack up her coloring supplies. As they prepared to leave, Lily tugged on Isabella's sleeve. Miss Isabella? Are you scared? Isabella knelt down to Lily's level. Yes, I am. That's okay. Daddy says being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. It means you're being smart about being brave. She pulled a crayon drawing from her backpack, a stick figure in a cape standing next to a taller stick figure in what might have been a crane. I made this for you. For luck. Isabella's throat tightened. Thank you, Lily. As they walked out, Daniel paused. If we do this, and I'm not saying we will, we do it my way. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. We get evidence, we get the people out, and we disappear before Richard knows what hit him. Agreed. And Isabella? He met her eyes. If it comes down to saving those kids or keeping you alive, I'm choosing you. Not because you matter more, but because Lily already lost her mother. She doesn't need her father dying for strangers. When did her mother... Cancer. 2 years ago. 3 days after I got back from my last deployment. His voice was steady, but Isabella could hear the fault lines underneath. I spent 8 years fighting other people's wars. I came home to fight one I couldn't win with a rifle. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just be smart. Tomorrow night, if we do this, we're not heroes. We're not crusaders. We're just two people trying to tip the scales a little toward justice. He took Lily's hand. Ready to go build that rocket ship, Bug? To the moon, Lily declared. As they walked away, Isabella heard Lily ask, Is Ms. Isabella going to be our friend now? Maybe, Bug. Maybe. Isabella sat in the cafe for another hour, staring at the crayon drawing of heroes. Tomorrow night, she would either save 43 lives or lose everything trying. But as she thought about Lily's innocent faith that people should help each other, about Daniel's quiet commitment to doing what was right despite the cost, she knew she didn't really have a choice. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, different from Anna's. Pier 47, 11 p.m. tomorrow. Come alone and bring $500,000 cash, or the container gets redirected to international waters. Your uncle thinks you need a lesson in minding your own business. Isabella stared at the message. It wasn't a warning. It was a trap. Richard knew she couldn't resist trying to save those kids, and he was going to use that against her. She started typing a response, then stopped. Let Richard think he had her figured out. Let him think she was the naive, principled CEO who would walk into his trap with nothing but good intentions and family money. He had no idea about Daniel Hayes. No idea that she wasn't going to face this alone. Tomorrow night, everything would change. The Portland rain returned with vengeance Sunday afternoon, turning the city into an impressionist painting of blurred lights and shadows. Isabella stood in her penthouse, watching the storm build over the Columbia River. She'd withdrawn the $500,000. It had taken creative accounting and liquidating some personal investments, but she'd managed it. The money sat in a nondescript duffel bag, each bundle a weight on her conscience. Her phone rang. Daniel. "Change of plans," he said without preamble. "My contact at the port says there's increased activity around Pier 47. Your uncle's not just setting a trap, he's planning something bigger." "How much bigger?" 3 containers, not one. All scheduled for midnight loading onto a ship bound for international waters. Once they're gone, we'll never trace them. Isabella's stomach turned. That could be over 100 people. Which is why I need you to reconsider. This isn't a rescue anymore. It's a war. All the more reason to fight it. Daniel was quiet for a moment. "I've called in help. Someone I trust. Former squad mate who owes me enough favors to fill a container of his own. But Isabella, you need to understand, if this goes sideways, we're not looking at arrest. Your uncle won't leave witnesses." "Neither will I," Isabella said, surprising herself with the hardness in her voice. "Not when it comes to this. Meet me at the warehouse on Terminal Road, Building 19, 1 hour. Isabella grabbed the duffel bag, then paused at her desk. She pulled out a piece of paper and wrote quickly. "If something happens to me tonight, know that Richard Walker and Marcus Walker are running a human trafficking ring through Walker Maritime Shipping. Evidence can be found in containers at Pier 47. I'm sorry I couldn't do more." She left it prominently on her desk, then headed for the door. Building 19 was a relic from Portland's industrial past, a massive warehouse that predated modern shipping containers. Daniel's truck was already there, along with a black SUV she didn't recognize. Inside, Daniel stood with another man, bigger, broader, with the kind of scarred face that suggested he'd been in more fights than he'd lost. They were examining a tablet showing what looked like terminal schematics. "Isabella, this is Tommy Morrison. Tommy, Isabella Carter." Tommy's handshake could have crushed stone. "Ma'am, Danny filled me in. This is some serious shit you're taking on." "Danny?" Isabella glanced at Daniel, who actually looked embarrassed. "Only Tommy calls me that, and only because he saved my life enough times to earn the right." Daniel pointed to the schematics. "Tommy's been doing recon since this afternoon. Tell her what you found." Tommy pulled up photos on the tablet. "Your uncle's brought in outside muscle, professional mercenaries, not dock thugs. I counted at least 30, plus whatever regular security he's running. They've got the pier locked down tight." 30. Isabella felt the weight of impossibility settling on her shoulders. "But," Tommy continued, "they're spread out, covering 3 containers across the pier. And they're expecting you to walk in the front door with money, not a tactical insertion from the water." "The water?" Daniel pulled up a different screen. "Tommy's got a boat. We go in from the harbor side, quiet and dark. You go in the front, make a show of cooperation, keep them focused on you. While they're distracted, we extract the container's contents. Use me as bait, only if you're comfortable with it. The moment things get dangerous, you run. No hesitation, no looking back." Isabella studied the plan. It was insane, it was dangerous, it was probably going to get them all killed. "What about the authorities? Can't we call, but..." "With what evidence?" Tommy interrupted. "And how many cops are on your uncle's payroll? You call this in. Best case scenario, word gets to him and those containers disappear forever. Worst case, you have an accident before you can make the call." "So it's just us." "Just us," Daniel confirmed. He pulled out a bulletproof vest. "This is for you." "It's not much, but..." "Daniel!" Isabella took the vest. "Thank you. For everything. If something happens tonight, nothing's going to happen. We get in, we get the people out, we get evidence, and we disappear. Clean and simple." Tommy snorted. "Nothing's ever clean and simple, Danny. You know that better than anyone." "This time will be different." Daniel checked his watch. 2 hours until showtime. "Isabella, you sure about this?" She thought about her father, about the company he'd built with his own hands, about the legacy that was being destroyed by greed and evil. She thought about 43 teenagers in containers, about Anna's terrified voice, about all the ones they couldn't save. I'm sure. Daniel pulled out a small device. Earpiece. We'll be in constant contact. The moment something feels wrong, you tell us. As Isabella fitted the earpiece, Tommy pulled Daniel aside. She heard fragments of their conversation. Lily. Safe. If something happens to me. She's with Mrs. Chen, Daniel said. Sleepover with her granddaughter. She's safe. She better stay that way, Danny. That little girl doesn't deserve to lose another parent. She won't. But Isabella heard the uncertainty in his voice. They all knew the odds. They all knew what they were walking into. As they prepared their equipment, zip ties, bolt cutters, emergency medical supplies, Isabella's phone buzzed. Marcus. 1 hour. Come alone. Any tricks in the containers go straight to international waters. Your choice, cousin. She showed the message to Daniel. They moved up the timeline. Shit. Daniel grabbed his gear. Tommy, we go now. Isabella, can you get to Pier 47 in 30 minutes? Yes. Then we move. Tommy, get the boat. I'll prep the extraction route. He turned to Isabella. Remember, you're not a hero. You're a CEO trying to save your company's reputation. Play the part. Be scared. Be cooperative. Be anything that keeps them focused on you and not on the water. Isabella nodded, though the weight of what she was about to do threatened to buckle her knees. 20 minutes later, she stood at the entrance to Pier 47, rain soaking through her coat, the duffel bag of money heavy in her hand. The pier stretched out before her, containers stacked like walls, creating a maze of steel and shadows. Floodlights created pools of harsh white light, leaving darker spaces between. I'm here, she said into the earpiece. Copy. Daniel's voice was calm in her ear. We're in position. Tommy's got eyes on Container 1. I'm moving to Container 2. You see anyone? Not yet. Isabella walked forward, her heels clicking on wet concrete. The sound echoed off the containers, announcing her presence. Miss Carter? She spun to find Marcus emerging from between two containers, flanked by 6 men with obvious weapons. Cousin, so good of you to come. I brought the money. Of course you did. You always were predictable. Marcus gestured, and 2 men moved to flank her. But money isn't really what this is about, is it? Isabella's heart raced. Then what? Teaching you a lesson. About family, about loyalty, about what happens when you forget your place. Richard appeared, his bulk filling an expensive raincoat. Hello, Isabella. You look just like your father when he was disappointed. He had that same self-righteous look when he discovered our little side business. The world tilted. He knew? For about 10 minutes, just long enough to threaten to go to the FBI. Just long enough to force us to take action. You killed him. It wasn't a question. We made it look like a heart attack, much cleaner than what we have planned for you. Richard nodded to Marcus, who pulled out a gun. You're going to have a terrible accident tonight. Depressed CEO, overwhelmed by discovering corruption in her company, takes her own life at the scene of the crime. Container 1 is opening, Tommy's voice crackled in her ear. Holy shit, there's at least 30 people in here. Kids. Danny, we need to move fast. Isabella kept her face neutral as Richard continued. The money will be found on your body, suggesting you were part of the trafficking ring. Your suicide note, which Marcus has helpfully already written, will confess to everything. You won't get away with this. We already have. Richard walked closer. Did you really think you could fight us? You're one person, Isabella. We're an institution. We have judges, police commissioners, congressmen. We own this city's shadows. Moving to Container 2, Daniel's voice was tense. Isabella, we need more time. Isabella dropped the duffel bag, letting it fall open, money spilling onto wet concrete. If you're going to kill me anyway, at least tell me why. Why trafficking? Why turn Dad's company into this? Marcus laughed. Money, cousin. Do you have any idea how much a pretty European teenager sells for? How much weapons shipments to cartels pay? Your father's legitimate shipping made, what, 5% margins? We make 500%. Container 2 open, Daniel reported. Jesus Christ, some of these kids are barely conscious. Tommy, we need medical. An alarm pierced the night. Richard's head snapped toward the water. What? Sir! One of the mercenaries ran up. The containers, someone's breached them. Isabella saw her moment. She grabbed the fallen money bag and swung it at Marcus, the weight of $500,000 connecting with his jaw. He went down hard, the gun skittering across concrete. Run! Daniel's voice roared in her ear. She ran. Gunfire erupted behind her. Isabella sprinted between containers as bullets sparked off steel. She could hear Richard screaming orders, hear boots pounding after her. Turn left! Daniel guided her through the maze. There's a ladder on container stack 7. Climb! She found the ladder, her hands slipping on wet metal as she climbed. Below, flashlight swept the ground where she'd been. I'm moving to container 3, Daniel said. Tommy, can you handle the extraction? Already loading kids onto the boat. But Danny, we've got company. Multiple hostiles moving toward... The earpiece went to static. Daniel? Tommy? Isabella pressed herself against the top of the container, rain pounding around her. Anyone? Silence. She was alone. Below she could see figures moving through the maze of containers. Richard's voice carried over the rain. Find her! Find them all. No witnesses. Isabella looked toward the water. She could see movement, people running from open containers toward the harbor. Some were carrying others. Tommy's boat was there, a shadow against darker water, but she could also see muzzle flashes. A firefight near the pier's edge. She had to help. Isabella found another ladder down the far side of the container stack. As she descended, a figure appeared below, one of Richard's mercenaries. She let go, dropping the last 6 feet, her boots connecting with his shoulders. They went down in a tangle, and Isabella grabbed his radio. Target acquired northwest corner, she said into it, hoping her voice was disguised enough by rain and adrenaline. Moving to intercept. She ran toward the water, toward the sound of gunfire. As she rounded a container, she found Daniel. He was down, blood pooling beneath him, still firing at mercenaries trying to reach a group of teenagers huddled behind an overturned forklift. Daniel! She slid to her knees beside him. The blood was coming from his leg, a through and through that had hit something vital. Get them out, he gasped. Get the kids to the boat. Isabella grabbed his weapon. She'd never fired a gun before, but rage was an excellent teacher. She pointed and pulled the trigger, keeping the mercenaries pinned while shouting at the teenagers. Run! To the boat! Now! They ran, a stream of terrified youth sprinting for freedom. Isabella kept firing until the gun clicked empty. More magazines in my vest, Daniel managed. She reloaded, her hands somehow steady despite everything. More mercenaries appeared. She fired, not trying to hit them, just trying to buy time. Danny! Tommy appeared, his own weapon blazing. We need to move. Together they dragged Daniel toward the water. Behind them, Richard's voice rose above the chaos. Sink the boat! Don't let them leave! An explosion rocked the pier. Isabella looked back to see one of the containers in flames. Someone had used incendiaries. But the fire was spreading, and in its light she could see everything. The 3 open containers, their human cargo mostly evacuated. Tommy's boat, overloaded with refugees but pulling away from the pier. Richard and Marcus standing with their remaining men, watching their empire burn. And sirens. Beautiful, beautiful sirens growing closer. Someone called it in, Tommy gasped as they reached the water's edge. A second boat was there, a rigid inflatable that could barely hold them. Multiple agencies, FBI, Coast Guard, everyone. They loaded Daniel into the boat. As Tommy started the engine, Isabella looked back one last time. Richard stood at the pier's edge, his face illuminated by flames. He raised his gun. The shot was impossibly loud. Isabella felt the impact, the vest absorbing most of it, but not all. She fell backward into the boat as Tommy gunned the engine. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the Coast Guard cutter rounding the harbor point, searchlights blazing, and Richard Walker raising his hands in surrender as federal agents swarmed the pier. They'd done it. They'd saved them. The darkness was warm and welcoming, and Isabella let it take her, Daniel's blood mixing with hers in the bottom of the boat, the sound of children crying with relief fading into silence. The steady beep of medical monitors pulled Isabella from the darkness. Her eyes fluttered open to harsh fluorescent lights and the antiseptic smell of a hospital room. Every breath sent fire through her ribs where Richard's bullet had found the gap in her vest, but she was alive. That had to count for something. "Welcome back." She turned her head slowly to find Daniel in the bed next to hers, his leg elevated and wrapped in enough bandages to supply a small war. His face was pale but alert, those calculating eyes already assessing her condition. "The kids?" Her voice came out as a croak. "Safe. All 73 of them." Daniel shifted, wincing at the movement. "Tommy got them to the Coast Guard. They're being processed, given medical care, and those with families are being reunited." 73. Not 43. The number hit her like another bullet. "How long have I been out?" 2 days. "You lost a lot of blood. The vest caught most of it, but Richard always was a good shot." Daniel's jaw tightened. "He's in federal custody, by the way, along with Marcus and 18 of their associates. The FBI found enough evidence in those containers to put them away for life." Isabella tried to sit up, gasped at the pain, and fell back. "My father." "Richard said he killed him." "I know. The FBI knows too. They're exhuming the body, running new toxicology. If Richard's telling the truth, they'll find evidence of poisoning." The door opened, and a woman in an FBI windbreaker entered, followed by a man in a rumpled suit who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Ms. Carter, I'm Special Agent Sarah Chen. This is Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Brennan. We need to talk about Walker Maritime." Isabella looked at Daniel, who nodded slightly. "Talk." Agent Chen pulled up a chair. "First, you should know you're not under investigation. The evidence clearly shows you were trying to stop the trafficking ring, but we need your help to unravel the full scope of this operation." "It goes beyond Portland," Brennan added. "Your uncle had connections in 12 major ports across 3 countries. We're looking at one of the largest trafficking networks we've ever encountered." "I'll tell you everything I know," Isabella said, "but I want immunity for Daniel and Tommy. They were helping me." "Already done," Chen assured her. "Mr. Hayes' actions saved dozens of lives. Mr. Morrison's Navy record speaks for itself. We're more interested in the financial web your uncle created." For the next 3 hours, Isabella walked them through everything she'd discovered, everything she'd suspected. The shell companies, the altered manifests, the pattern of containers that moved through the port without proper documentation. By the end, her throat was raw and her ribs screamed with every breath. "We'll need you to testify," Brennan said. "The trial won't be for months, but when it comes, your testimony will be crucial." "I'll be there." After they left, Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You know this isn't over, right? Your uncle had partners, people who lost money when those containers didn't deliver. They'll want someone to blame. Let them come." Isabella turned to look at him. "I'm done being afraid. I'm done letting fear dictate what's right. That's a dangerous philosophy," says the man who took on 20 thugs to save a stranger. "I had training and motivation." Daniel's voice softened. "Lily's been asking about you. She made you another drawing. How did you explain this?" Isabella gestured at their mutual hospitalization. "Told her we were fighting bad guys and got hurt, but we won." She seemed satisfied with that explanation. Kids are remarkably adaptable to simplified truth. A knock at the door interrupted them. A young woman peered in, her face familiar but unexpected. "Anna?" Isabella struggled to sit up despite the pain. Anna entered slowly, as if ready to flee at any moment. Behind her was a younger girl who shared her features, the sister she'd mentioned. "I wanted to thank you," Anna said. "Both of you. When I heard what happened at the pier, when I heard you'd stopped them." She wiped at tears. "You saved my sister." She was in container 3. The younger girl, maybe 15, stepped forward. "They took me from school. Said my sister owed them money, that I was collateral. I thought I'd never see home again." Daniel's expression darkened. "Your sister doesn't owe anyone anything. Whatever they told you was a lie to keep you compliant. We know that now." Anna pulled out a flash drive. "I've been documenting everything since I escaped. Names, dates, locations. Other girls who got out have been helping. There are 12 of us now, all willing to testify. Isabella took the drive with trembling hands. This is dangerous for you. So was staying silent. Anna's voice carried steel now. We were victims. Now we're witnesses. There's a difference. After they left, Isabella held the flash drive like it was made of plutonium. This could burn down what's left of the company. Your father's company was already gone, Daniel said gently. The moment Richard turned it into a trafficking front, it stopped being Walker Maritime. The question is, what do you want to build from the ashes? Before she could answer, the door burst open. Lily Hayes rushed in, followed by an exhausted-looking elderly Chinese woman. Daddy! Lily threw herself at Daniel's bed, stopping just short of impact. Mrs. Chen said you were hurt, but okay, and I made you 17 drawings, and I didn't cry once, except maybe a little, but that was because Jason said his dad could beat up my dad, which is stupid because you're basically a superhero, and... She paused for breath, then noticed Isabella. Miss Isabella! You're hurt too. Just a little, Isabella managed, charmed despite her pain. Lily pulled a crumpled paper from her backpack. It showed 2 stick figures in hospital beds with a smaller figure bringing them flowers. I made this yesterday. Mrs. Chen said you were sleeping, but you'd wake up soon. It's beautiful, Isabella said, meaning it. Lily, gentle, Mrs. Chen warned. They're both injured. I know. Lily's voice dropped to a stage whisper. Daddy, did you really fight 30 bad guys? Where did you hear that? Tommy, he came by yesterday. He said you were awesome and that Ms. Isabella hit someone with a bag of money, which is kind of funny if you think about it. Despite everything, Daniel smiled. Tommy talks too much. He also said you're heroes, both of you. Lily looked between them with those serious 7-year-old eyes. Is that true? Daniel reached out to stroke his daughter's hair. We just did what needed doing, Bug. That's what heroes do, though. They do what needs doing when nobody else will. She pulled out another paper. I wrote a story about it for school. Mrs. Huo, Peterson says I have to change the names for privacy, but it's really about you. Isabella watched father and daughter, feeling something shift in her chest that had nothing to do with the bullet wound. Mrs. Chen finally corralled Lily with promises of ice cream in the cafeteria, leaving Daniel and Isabella alone again. She's remarkable, Isabella said. She's everything good in my life. Daniel stared at the ceiling. When her mother died, I thought about giving up. Thought about eating my gun more than once, but then I'd look at Lily and realize I couldn't leave her alone in this world. Daniel, I'm telling you this because you need to understand something. What we did at the pier, that was the right thing. But I can't keep doing the right thing if it means Lily loses me. I can't be your permanent partner in fighting crime. Isabella nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Because Richard's gone, but the infrastructure remains. Other people will try to fill that vacuum. Are you planning to fight them all? I'm planning to dismantle the infrastructure itself. Isabella shifted to face him better, ignoring the spike of pain. I'm going to tear Walker Maritime down to the foundations and rebuild it. Complete transparency. New leadership. Every container tracked, every shipment verified. We'll make less money, but we'll make it honestly. That's a hell of a mountain to climb. Then I'll climb it. Daniel studied her for a long moment. You'll need security. Real security, not your uncle's thugs. Are you offering? I'm offering to help you find someone. I know people from my service days, good people who need work and believe in doing things right. But not you. Not me. I've got Lily to think about. He paused. But maybe I could consult. Part-time. Help set up your security protocols, train your people. Keep an eye on things from my crane. I'd like that. Over the next week, as they recovered, the full scope of Richard's network began to emerge. The FBI raid spread from Portland to Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Every day brought new revelations, new arrests. Walker Maritime's stock price plummeted. Board members resigned in disgrace. Clients fled to competitors. Isabella watched it all from her hospital bed, reading reports on her laptop, fielding calls from lawyers and investigators. Daniel, in his adjacent bed, offered occasional commentary but mostly focused on his recovery and Lily's daily visits. On the 8th day, Marcus broke. Agent Chen delivered the news personally. Your cousin wants to make a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. What kind of reduction? Isabella asked. 25 years instead of life. He's young enough that he might actually see freedom again. And what does his cooperation buy us? Everything. Financial records, contact lists, details about your father's murder. He's also offering to testify against Richard. Isabella felt Daniel watching her. Take the deal, she said finally. Marcus was always weak. Richard manipulated him. That doesn't excuse what he did, but 25 years is still justice. Chen nodded. There's something else. Marcus says there's a safe in Richard's house, hidden behind a painting in his study. He says it contains documents that prove your father was trying to stop them when he died. That afternoon, Isabella demanded to be released from the hospital. The doctors protested, but she signed the AMA papers anyway. Daniel, still bedridden with his leg, could only watch as she prepared to leave.
You sure about this? He asked. I need to see it. I need to know my father died trying to do the right thing. Then take Tommy with you. Please, Isabella agreed.
Tommy picked her up in his black SUV, helping her into the passenger seat with surprising gentleness for such a large man. Danny's worried about you, he said as they drove toward Richard's house in the West Hills. Daniel worries about everyone. No, he worries about people who matter. There's a difference. Tommy navigated the winding roads with practiced ease. He tell you about Sarah, his wife? He tell you how she died? Isabella shook her head. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to death. Danny was in Afghanistan when she got sick. He tried to get leave, but the mission was classified, critical. By the time he got home, she had 3 days left. Tommy's scarred hands tightened on the wheel. He sat by her bed for 72 hours straight. Didn't sleep, didn't eat, just held her hand and told her about all the things they'd do when she got better, even though they both knew she wouldn't. Why are you telling me this? Because Danny doesn't let people in anymore, doesn't let himself care beyond Lily, but he cares about you, and that terrifies him. They arrived at Richard's house, a monument to ill-gotten wealth perched above the city. The FBI had already been through it, but the crime scene tape remained. Tommy produced a key. Chen gave it to me, said you had a right to see what's in that safe. The study was exactly what Isabella expected. Dark wood, leather-bound books no one had read, expensive scotch no one appreciated. The painting Marcus had mentioned hung behind the desk, a garish abstract that probably cost more than most people's houses. Tommy swung it aside, revealing the safe. The combination, provided by Marcus, worked on the first try. Inside were stacks of documents, USB drives, and photographs. But what made Isabella's breath catch was a letter, handwritten, dated 2 days before her father's death. Isabella, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. I've discovered something terrible about our company, about Richard and Marcus. They're using our ships, our containers, to traffic human beings. Children, Isabella. Children. I confronted Richard tonight. He laughed, said I was naive, that this was how real business worked. I told him I was going to the FBI in the morning. The way he looked at me, I don't think I'll make it to morning. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stop this sooner. I'm sorry I was blind to what was happening under my nose. But you're stronger than I ever was. You have your mother's courage and her sense of justice. If something happens to me, don't let them win. Don't let Walker Maritime remain a tool for evil. I love you more than words can express. Be brave, my daughter. Be better than I was. Dad. Isabella sank into Richard's chair, the letter trembling in her hands. Tommy stood quietly by the window, giving her space to grieve. He knew, she whispered. He knew they would kill him, and he still confronted them. That's courage, Tommy said. Same kind you showed at the pier. Isabella found more in the safe. Recordings of conversations between Richard and his contacts, financial records showing the full scope of the trafficking network, photos of containers being loaded with human cargo. Everything the FBI would need to ensure Richard never saw freedom again. But there was something else. A small envelope with her name on it in her father's writing. Inside was a key and an address. What is it? Tommy asked. I don't know. This address is in the industrial district, Old Portland, near the river. Want to check it out? Isabella nodded. They drove across the city, the afternoon sun breaking through clouds for the first time in days. The address led them to a small warehouse, unremarkable except for its pristine condition in a neighborhood of decay. The key fit the door. Inside was not what Isabella expected. Instead of an empty warehouse, she found an office. Simple, functional, with filing cabinets, a desk, and walls covered in maps of shipping routes. But these weren't Walker Maritime's routes. A letter sat on the desk. Isabella, this is my contingency plan. If Richard and Marcus corrupt Walker Maritime beyond redemption, this is where you start over. I've been quietly setting aside resources, establishing independent contacts, preparing for the possibility that our family legacy might need to be rebuilt from scratch. In these files, you'll find everything you need. Clean shipping contacts, honest port authorities, investors who believe in legitimate business. The accounts in the bottom drawer contain enough capital to start small but smart. I pray you never need this, but if you do, know that I prepared it with love and hope for what you might build. Your father, Isabella, opened the filing cabinets. True to his word, her father had built the framework for a new company. Contact lists, contracts ready for signature, even a business plan that emphasized transparency and accountability. Your dad was one smart son of a bitch, Tommy said, reading over her shoulder. He knew Richard might win, so he prepared for the aftermath. Isabella's phone rang. Daniel. You okay? His voice was tight with concern. Better than okay. She explained what they'd found. He left me everything I need to start over, to build something clean. That's incredible. Daniel, there's a note here about security consultants. Your name is on it. Silence on the line. Then, your father knew who I was? Isabella found the relevant file. He knew you were former military, knew you were operating a crane at Terminal 7. His notes say, trustworthy, skilled, cares more about right than profit. He was apparently watching you. Why? Because he was looking for good people, people who could help protect the company if something happened to him. Isabella closed the file. He chose you before I did. When she returned to the hospital that evening, Daniel was sitting up, Lily curled against his side, both of them watching something on his laptop. Miss Isabella, Lily bounced up. Daddy says you found treasure. Not gold treasure, but paper treasure, which sounds boring, but Daddy says it's actually really important. It is important. Isabella sat carefully in the visitor's chair. It means I can build something new, something good. Will Daddy help? Isabella met Daniel's eyes. I hope so. Can I help too? Lily asked. I'm really good at organizing things. Mrs. Chen says I have a systematic mind, which I think means I'm good at putting things in order. I would love your help, Isabella said seriously. Every good company needs someone with a systematic mind. As Lily chattered about her organizational ideas, Daniel watched Isabella with an expression she couldn't quite read. Later, after Tommy had taken Lily home, Daniel finally spoke. Your father saw something in me I'm not sure I see in myself. He saw someone who would stand up for what's right, even when it costs everything. Is that what you see? Isabella moved from the chair to sit on the edge of his bed, ignoring her protesting ribs. I see someone who saved 73 kids, who fought impossible odds because it was right, who's raising an amazing daughter alone and still finds time to save strangers in the night. I'm no hero, Isabella. No, she agreed. You're better. You're a good man who does heroic things without needing the title. Daniel reached out, his hand covering hers. When we get out of here, when things calm down, I'd like to help you build this new company, part-time like we discussed. But also, he struggled for words. Lily asked if you could come to dinner sometime, when we're both healed. Just Lily asking? No. His thumb traced circles on her hand. Not just Lily. The next morning brought news that Richard had been denied bail. The judge deemed him a flight risk and a danger to the community. Marcus's cooperation was yielding more arrests daily. The trafficking network was collapsing like dominoes. But Isabella's attention was on the future, not the past. From her hospital bed, she began making calls. The contacts her father had cultivated were eager to help. Investors who'd pulled out of Walker Maritime were interested in her new venture. Port authorities in clean cities offered partnership agreements. "What will you call it?" Daniel asked, reviewing her business plan. "Phoenix Shipping," Isabella said. "Rising from the ashes." A bit on the nose, don't you think? Sometimes obvious symbolism is exactly what people need. She made another note on her laptop. "I want to hire Anna and the other survivors who are willing, give them jobs, training, a chance to rebuild their lives. That's dangerous. They're witnesses in an ongoing case. They're survivors who deserve a second chance. Besides, who better to help us spot trafficking than people who've lived through it?" Daniel smiled. "Your father would be proud." 3 weeks later, they were both released. Daniel on crutches, Isabella moving carefully but steadily. Tommy drove them to the small warehouse that would become Phoenix Shipping's first office. Anna was already there, along with 4 other survivors who'd taken Isabella up on her offer of employment. They stood nervously by the door, unsure of their welcome. "This is your company too now," Isabella told them. "We build this together." Over the following months, Phoenix Shipping grew slowly but steadily. Daniel designed security protocols that made their containers nearly impossible to compromise. Tommy trained their security team. Anna and the other survivors developed a monitoring system that could spot the signs of trafficking that others might miss. Walker Maritime, meanwhile, died a very public death. The trials began with Richard maintaining his innocence despite overwhelming evidence. Marcus testified against him, detailing years of criminal activity. Isabella testified too. Her father's letter entered into evidence, his murder added to Richard's charges. On the day Richard was convicted, life without parole on 47 counts, Isabella stood outside the courthouse with Daniel and Lily. "Is it over?" Lily asked, holding both their hands. "The trial's over," Isabella said, "but our work's just beginning." "Good," Lily said firmly. "Because there are still bad guys out there, and someone needs to stop them." Daniel and Isabella exchanged glances over her head. The 7-year-old had summarized their mission better than any business plan could. That evening, at dinner in Daniel's small apartment, Isabella watched him help Lily with her homework while she cooked. A domestic scene she never could have imagined months ago when she was a CEO in designer suits who never questioned where her success came from. "Isabella?" Lily looked up from her math worksheet. "Are you and Daddy boyfriend and girlfriend now?" Daniel choked on his water. Isabella carefully kept stirring the pasta sauce. "We're friends," Isabella said carefully. "Good friends who care about each other." "But you could be boyfriend and girlfriend, right? I mean, if you wanted to." Lily's eyes were innocently curious. "Because Tommy says Daddy smiles more when you're around, and Mrs. Chen says you make each other better people, which sounds like boyfriend and girlfriend stuff to me." "Lily," Daniel warned. "What?" "I'm just saying if you wanted to be boyfriend and girlfriend, that would be okay with me. Isabella's nice, and she fights bad guys, and she doesn't treat me like a baby." Isabella set down the spoon and knelt beside Lily's chair. "You know what's more important than boyfriend and girlfriend? Family. And that's what we're building here. A different kind of family, maybe, but family nonetheless." Lily considered this. "So you'll stay? Even when all the bad guys are caught?" "Even then," Isabella promised. Later, after Lily was asleep, Daniel and Isabella sat on his small balcony, looking out over Portland's lights. "She's not wrong, you know," Daniel said quietly. "About the smiling more." "Mrs. Chen's not wrong either," Isabella replied. "About making each other better." Daniel stood, pulling her up with him, careful of her still healing ribs. "Isabella Carter, would you like to be my girlfriend? I know it's complicated, with everything we've been through, with the company, with—" She kissed him, cutting off his words. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. "Yes, though I should warn you, I come with a complicated past and a vendetta against human traffickers. And I come with a 7-year-old who's already planning our wedding, judging by the drawings I found under her bed. Then we're perfectly matched in our complications." They stood together, looking out over the city that had been the backdrop to so much pain and triumph. Below, the port stretched out to the river, its lights reflecting on dark water. Somewhere down there, Phoenix Shipping's first container was being loaded, its contents verified, its destination clean. It was a small victory in an enormous fight, but it was theirs. Your father would be proud, Daniel said. I hope so. Isabella leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of someone who'd stood between her and death, who'd chosen right over easy, who'd shown her that strength wasn't about money or power, but about the choices you made when everything was on the line. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The trafficking networks had tentacles that spread far beyond Portland. There would be threats, attempts at revenge, moments when the fight seemed impossible. But tonight, she stood with a man who'd taught her what courage really looked like, thinking about a little girl asleep inside who'd reminded them both what they were fighting for. And for the first time since she'd discovered her family's dark secret, Isabella felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. The morning Phoenix Shipping's first international container cleared customs in Amsterdam, Isabella's phone rang at 4 a.m. She reached across Daniel's sleeping form to answer it, her voice still thick with sleep. Miss? Carter? The voice was unfamiliar, accented. My name is Dmitry Volkov. I represent certain interests that were disrupted by your uncle's arrest. Isabella was instantly awake. Daniel's eyes opened, alert despite the hour. She put the phone on speaker. What do you want? Simply to inform you that your uncle owed us $30 million. With him indisposed, that debt falls to his successor. I'm not his successor. Phoenix Shipping has no connection to Walker Maritime's criminal activities. Debts don't disappear because companies change names, Ms. Carter. You have 48 hours to arrange payment, or we'll collect in other ways. The line went dead. Daniel was already reaching for his secure phone. Tommy needs to know. This is the Russian connection Marcus mentioned in his testimony. $30 million. Isabella sat up, running calculations in her head. Phoenix doesn't have anywhere near that, even if I liquidated everything. You're not paying them. Daniel's voice was flat. You pay once, you pay forever. That's how these people work. Then what do? We fight. But this time, we need more help than just Tommy. Within an hour, they were in Phoenix Shipping's office, now expanded to occupy half the warehouse. Anna was already there, having received Daniel's emergency call. She'd brought coffee and 3 other survivors who'd become part of Phoenix's security team. The Volkov Bratva, Anna said, her face pale. They supplied many of the girls. Eastern European mostly, but some Asian. They're not like your uncle. They don't pretend to be legitimate businessmen. Tommy arrived bringing someone Isabella didn't recognize, a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. This is Agent Patricia Reed, DEA, Tommy said. She's been working the Volkov case for 3 years. Reed didn't waste time on pleasantries. Dmitry Volkov is a ghost. We know he exists, know he runs the West Coast operations for the Bratva, but no one's ever gotten close enough to make a case. Your uncle was his biggest distribution partner. And now he thinks I inherited the partnership along with the debt? That's how they see it. In their world, family obligations don't end with arrest. Reed pulled out a tablet. But here's the thing. We've been looking for a way into Volkov's organization, someone he'd approach directly. You want to use Isabella as bait. Daniel's voice carried a dangerous edge. Again. I want to give Ms. Carter the opportunity to help us take down the people who supplied the children her uncle trafficked. Reed met his gaze steadily, with full FBI backup this time. How full? Tommy asked. Because last time I checked, Volkov's people don't play by rules of engagement. Full tactical support, surveillance, SWAT on standby, the works. Reed turned to Isabella. But it only works if Volkov believes you're considering payment. You'd need to meet with him. Absolutely not, Daniel said. I'll do it, Isabella said at the same time. They stared at each other across the table. Around them, the room held its breath. Isabella, these aren't your uncle's hired thugs. The Bratva will kill you without hesitation if they suspect you're working with law enforcement. And how many more kids will they traffic if we don't stop them? Isabella stood, pacing to the window that overlooked the port. I started Phoenix Shipping to fight this, to make sure no container leaving Portland carries human cargo. But what's the point if the suppliers just find other routes?
The point is you stay alive, Daniel said, standing to follow her. Lily already thinks of you as... He stopped, but everyone heard what he hadn't said. As what? Isabella turned to face him. As someone who fights for what's right? As someone who doesn't back down from bullies?
What kind of example do I set if I run from this? Anna stepped forward. I know Volkov's lieutenant, Mikhail Petrenko. He was the one who handled the transactions with Marcus. She swallowed hard. He's the one who took my sister. If you meet with Volkov, Mikhail will be there. You're not suggesting, Tommy started. I'm suggesting I go with Isabella as her assistant. Mikhail won't recognize me. I was just product to him. But I'll recognize everyone in Volkov's inner circle. This is insane, Daniel said. We're talking about walking into a meeting with the Russian mob with a trafficking survivor as backup. We're talking about ending this, Isabella said quietly. Really ending it, not just playing defense. Reed cleared her throat. If we do this, we do it right. Full surveillance, panic buttons, extraction teams. The moment something goes wrong, we pull you out. And if Volkov suspects anything, he'll disappear for another 3 years, Tommy pointed out. Maybe longer. Then we make sure he doesn't suspect anything. Isabella looked at each of them in turn. 48 hours gives us today and tomorrow to prepare. Daniel, I need you to review extraction routes. Tommy, work with Agent Reed on tactical positioning. Anna, tell me everything you know about Mikhail and how these meetings typically work. Daniel grabbed her arm gently. Can we talk? Privately? They stepped outside into the gray Portland morning. The port was waking up, cranes moving, trucks arriving, the legitimate business of shipping continuing despite the shadows that lurked beneath. You're going to do this regardless of what I say, Daniel said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Even knowing it could get you killed. Even then. Daniel pulled her against him, his arms tight around her. I can't lose you. Not after Sarah. Not when Lily's finally starting to heal from losing her mother. You won't lose me. Isabella pulled back to look at him. Because you're going to make sure the plan is perfect. Every contingency covered, every exit mapped. You're going to do what you do best. Turn an impossible situation into a tactical advantage. This isn't Afghanistan. I can't call in air support if things go sideways. No, but you can be my air support. You and Tommy and Reed's team. She touched his face. I need to do this. Not just for the kids who might be saved, but for Anna. For all the survivors working with us. They need to see that the people who hurt them don't get to win. Daniel studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but we do this my way. Every detail, every precaution. Every detail, she agreed. They spent the next 36 hours preparing. Daniel and Tommy walked through dozens of scenarios, mapping response times and escape routes. Reed brought in a tech team to wire Isabella with undetectable surveillance equipment. Anna provided detailed intelligence about Bratva protocols, down to how they served their tea. The meeting was set for neutral ground, a private dining room at the Heathman Hotel, public enough to discourage immediate violence, but private enough for sensitive discussions. Volkov had agreed, apparently amused that Isabella was considering payment. The night before the meeting, Lily insisted on a sleepover at Isabella's apartment. They made blanket forts and watched Disney movies, the little girl chattering about school and friends and her latest drawings. But when bedtime came, Lily grew serious. Isabella? Daddy's scared. How do you know? He's using his mission voice, the one he used when he talked to Mommy's doctors, like he's trying to control something he can't control. Lily hugged her stuffed dinosaur. Are you going to do something dangerous? Isabella sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. Sometimes doing the right thing is dangerous, but I'll have your dad and Tommy and lots of other people keeping me safe. Promise you'll come back? I promise I'll do everything I can to come back safely. Lily considered this with 7-year-old gravity. Okay, but if you don't come back, I'm going to be really mad at you. That's fair. The next morning came too quickly. Isabella dressed carefully. Business attire that suggested wealth without ostentation. Nothing that would restrict movement if she needed to run. The wire Reed's team had installed was invisible, its battery pack hidden beneath a designer blazer. Anna met her at Phoenix's office, dressed as a professional assistant. Her hand shook slightly as she adjusted her blazer, but her face was determined. "You don't have to do this," Isabella said. "Yes, I do. For my sister, for all of us." Anna checked her phone. Mikhail just entered the hotel, 2 bodyguards with him. Daniel's voice came through Isabella's earpiece. "We see them. Tommy's in position in the lobby. Reed's team has the exits covered. I'm on the building across the street with Overwatch." "Copy," Isabella said quietly. Then to Anna, "Let's go." The Heathman's lobby was all old Portland elegance, dark wood, crystal chandeliers, the kind of quiet that money bought. Tommy sat in a leather chair near the elevators, apparently absorbed in a newspaper. Isabella didn't look at him as she and Anna crossed to the private dining rooms. Mikhail Petrenko stood outside their designated room. He was younger than Isabella expected, maybe 35, with the kind of handsome features that probably served him well in recruiting vulnerable girls. His eyes passed over Anna without recognition, focusing on Isabella. "Miss Carter, Mr. Volkov is waiting." The room was elegant, intimate, with windows overlooking Broadway. 3 men sat at the table, Volkov in the center, flanked by 2 others who radiated violence despite their expensive suits. Dmitry Volkov was not what Isabella expected. 60-something, grandfatherly, with silver hair and kind eyes that belonged on a pediatrician, not a human trafficker. He stood as they entered, gesturing to chairs across from him. "Miss Carter, thank you for coming." "Tea?" "No, thank you." "Ah, suspicious. Good. Suspicion keeps one alive in our business." He poured himself tea from an ornate samovar. "Though I understand you're trying to change businesses." Phoenix Shipping. Rising from ashes. Very poetic. "Let's skip the pleasantries," Isabella said. "You claim my uncle owed you money." "Not claim. Fact. $30 million for shipments that were intercepted thanks to your intervention." Volkov sipped his tea. "Lives were disrupted, investments lost. Someone must make restitution. I'm not responsible for my uncle's debts." "In my world, family is always responsible." His kindly eyes hardened. "But I'm not unreasonable. I understand you don't have 30 million, so I offer alternative, which is Phoenix Shipping moves certain containers, no questions asked. In exchange, debt is forgiven and you receive protection from others who might be unhappy about recent disruptions." Daniel's voice in her ear. "He's proposing exactly what we expected. Draw him out." "What kind of containers?" Isabella asked. "The kind your uncle specialized in, though we can be more discreet." "No children. I understand that's a particular sensitivity for you. Just adults who've chosen their path." "Chosen," Anna said quietly, speaking for the first time. "That's an interesting word for it." Mikhail's head snapped toward her, studying her face. Isabella saw the moment recognition dawned. "Pliad," he cursed in Russian. "You." Everything happened at once. Mikhail lunged across the table toward Anna. Isabella threw her tea in his face, the hot liquid making him recoil. Volkov's bodyguards reached for weapons. "FBI! Nobody move!" Reed's team burst through the door, weapons drawn, but Volkov remained calm, sipping his tea as chaos erupted around him. Miss Carter, you disappoint me." One of his bodyguards, faster than the FBI anticipated, grabbed Anna, a knife appearing at her throat. "Everyone back off or she dies." Daniel's voice urgent. "I don't have a shot." Too many bodies. Isabella stood slowly, hands visible. "Let her go." "It's me you want." "Actually," Volkov said, still seated, "it's neither of you I want." "Mikhail, release the girl." "But sir, release her." Volkov's voice carried absolute authority. Mikhail shoved Anna away, the knife disappearing. Reed's team moved in, but Volkov raised a hand. "I believe you'll find I've committed no crime here today. I had tea with Miss Carter. We discussed theoretical business arrangements. Nothing illegal was said or done until your dramatic entrance." Reed stepped forward. "Dmitry Volkov, you're under arrest for..." "For what? Having tea? Discussing hypothetical shipping arrangements?" His lawyer, who'd been silent until now, stood. My client has diplomatic immunity as a cultural attaché to the Russian consulate. Any arrest without concrete evidence of a crime committed on U.S. soil would create an international incident. Isabella felt the trap closing. Volkov had played them perfectly, revealing nothing actionable while learning everything about their cooperation with law enforcement. However, Volkov continued, standing, I'm not without mercy. Consider your uncle's debt forgiven, Ms. Carter. The cost of this lesson is worth $30 million. You've shown me that Phoenix shipping is too complicated for our needs. He moved toward the door, his men following. At the threshold, he paused. But remember this, Miss Carter. You've won a battle, not the war. There are always more containers, more routes, more desperate people willing to pay for passage. You've saved perhaps 100? There are thousands more you'll never even know about. After they left, after Reed's team stood down, after the wire was removed and statements were given, Isabella found herself on the hotel's roof with Daniel and Anna. We failed, Anna said, tears streaming down her face. He's still free. Mikhail's still free. We didn't fail, Daniel said. We learned. Volkov showed his hand, revealed his protection. Reed can work with that. And he forgave the debt, Isabella added. Phoenix is free of that threat. But he was right, Anna said. About the thousands we'll never save. Isabella put an arm around her. Then we save the ones we can. One container at a time, one life at a time. That's all anyone can do. That evening, Isabella sat in Daniel's apartment while he made dinner and Lily did homework. It was becoming their routine, domestic normalcy after chaos, ordinary life asserting itself despite the darkness they fought. Daddy says you were brave today, Lily announced, looking up from her math worksheet. Your daddy's the brave one. He kept us all safe. He says bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right, even when you are scared. Lily chewed her pencil thoughtfully. Were you scared? Terrified. Good. That means you were brave. Daniel set down plates of spaghetti, Lily's favorite. As they ate, talking about anything except the day's events, Isabella felt something she hadn't experienced since before her father's death. Family. Not the family she'd been born into, corrupted by greed and evil, but the family she'd chosen and that had chosen her. Later, after Lily was asleep, Daniel and Isabella stood on his small balcony, looking out at the city lights. Volkov won't forget this, Daniel said. He forgave the debt, but he'll remember the humiliation. Let him remember. Let them all remember that Portland isn't safe for traffickers anymore. One city. There are hundreds of others. Then we expand. Phoenix is growing. We can partner with other companies that share our values, create a network of clean shipping routes. Isabella turned to face him. It might take years, decades even, but we can make a difference. Daniel pulled her close. We. I like the sound of that. Is that a proposal, Mr. Hayes? It's a promise, Ms. Carter. Whatever fight you choose, I'm in it with you. The next morning brought unexpected news. Marcus had been attacked in federal prison, beaten badly enough to require hospitalization. The attackers were Russian, awaiting trial on unrelated charges. Volkov's message, Tommy said when he delivered the news. He can reach anyone, anywhere. But Isabella noticed something else in the report. Marcus had been protecting another inmate when the attack happened, a young man imprisoned for a nonviolent drug offense. He'd fought back, despite being outnumbered, and probably saved the younger man's life. Maybe there's hope for him yet, she said. Redemption's a long road, Daniel observed, but everyone deserves the chance to walk it. Phoenix shipping continued to grow. The clean reputation Isabella built attracted clients who'd grown wary of the corruption plaguing international shipping. Anna was promoted to head of security screening, her traumatic expertise transformed into a shield protecting others. The other survivors found their own roles, their own ways of turning pain into purpose. 3 months after the Volkov incident, Agent Reed appeared at Phoenix's office with news. Mikhail Petrenko is dead, found in a warehouse in Seattle, execution style. Word is Volkov blamed him for the botched meeting with you. Isabella felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret. And Volkov? Gone. Back to Russia, we think. His operation here is fragmenting, other groups fighting over territory. Reed paused. You did that. Your stand against him showed weakness, and in his world, weakness is fatal. We didn't stop the trafficking, though. Others will take his place. Yes, but they'll think twice about using Portland. You've made this city expensive for them. Too much scrutiny, too much risk. Reed stood to leave, then turned back. The Bureau is forming a task force on maritime trafficking. We could use a civilian advisor, someone who understands the shipping industry. Interested? Isabella looked at Daniel, who nodded slightly. Very interested. That night was Lily's school play. She was playing an astronaut in a production about careers, and she'd insisted both Daniel and Isabella attend. They sat in the elementary school auditorium, surrounded by other parents, watching 7-year-olds earnestly explain their dream jobs. When Lily took the stage in her handmade spacesuit, she delivered her lines perfectly until the end, when she was supposed to say what inspired her to be an astronaut. Instead of the scripted line, she looked directly at Daniel and Isabella. I want to be an astronaut because they explore dangerous places to help everyone on Earth understand the universe better. Just like my dad and Isabella explore dangerous places to help keep everyone safe, except they do it here on Earth, which is actually harder because there are bad guys here and probably not in space. The audience laughed, charmed by childhood honesty, but Isabella felt tears prick her eyes. This little girl understood more than most adults about the cost of doing right. After the play, as they walked to Daniel's truck, Lily between them holding both their hands, she asked, "Did I do good?" "You did perfect, Bug," Daniel said. "Even the part where I went off script?" "Especially that part," Isabella said. "Good. Mrs. Peterson says I have a problem with authority, but I think sometimes authority needs to be questioned, don't you?" Daniel and Isabella exchanged amused glances over her head. "Where did you learn that?" Daniel asked. "From watching you two. You question authority all the time when authority is wrong." Lily skipped ahead, then turned back. "Are we going for ice cream now?" "It's a school night," Daniel started, but Isabella interrupted. "I think heroes who question authority deserve ice cream." "I like the way you think," Lily declared. As they sat in the ice cream parlor, Lily chattering about her friends and her teacher and the boy who kept putting gum in her friend Emma's hair, Isabella realized this was what they were fighting for. Not abstract concepts of justice or revenge for past wrongs, but this, a 7-year-old girl eating chocolate ice cream on a Tuesday night, safe and loved and free to be a child. Her phone buzzed. Anna texted, "New intelligence about a trafficking route through San Francisco. Can we meet tomorrow?" Isabella showed it to Daniel, who sighed. "It never ends, does it?" "No," Isabella agreed. "But neither do we." Lily looked up, chocolate on her nose. "Are you talking about bad guys again?" "We're talking about tomorrow," Daniel said. "Tomorrow's good," Lily decided. "Tomorrow's always good because it means we won today." Out of the mouths of babes, Isabella thought. They had won today. Lily was safe. The children in Phoenix's containers were legitimate passengers or cargo. The survivors working with them were building new lives. It wasn't everything. It wasn't even enough. But it was something. And tomorrow, they'd fight for more. The war against trafficking would continue, fought in boardrooms and shipping containers, in FBI offices and elementary school auditoriums. It would be fought by former SEALS and former victims, by CEOS, who chose conscience over profit, and 7-year-olds who questioned authority. Isabella looked at her chosen family, Daniel wiping chocolate from Lily's face, the little girl protesting that she wasn't a baby, and knew that whatever tomorrow brought, they'd face it together. The man who'd stood between her and death that night at the pier, who'd chosen right over easy every time since, the little girl who'd lost her mother but refused to lose hope, who drew pictures of heroes and meant them. "Isabella," Lily's voice broke through her thoughts. "You're doing that thing again where you look all serious and thoughtful." "Sorry, what were you saying?" "I was saying that Emma thinks you and Daddy should get married so I can be a flower girl." I told her that was presumptuous. That's my new vocabulary word. But she made a good point about the dress being really pretty. Daniel nearly choked on his ice cream. "Lily." "What?" I'm just saying Emma made some valid points. Plus, if you got married, Isabella would officially be my stepmom, and then Jeremy Collins couldn't say she's not really family when she comes to school events. Has Jeremy Collins been giving you trouble? Daniel's voice shifted to what Lily called his protective dad tone. No, because I told him Isabella fights bad guys and he got scared. Lily grinned, which is technically true. Isabella reached across the table to take Daniel's hand. Well, we can't have Jeremy Collins spreading rumors. Daniel's eyes widened. Isabella. I'm just saying, Lily makes some valid points. Are we talking about this? Here? Now? Over ice cream? Why not? The best decisions in my life have been unconventional. Isabella squeezed his hand. Besides, Lily would look adorable in a flower girl dress. I would, Lily agreed solemnly. I've been practicing throwing flower petals. Mrs. Chen taught me the proper wrist motion. Daniel looked between them, these two people who'd become his world. You're both ridiculous. Is that a yes? Lily asked hopefully. Daniel stood, pulling both of them into his arms. That's a yes to someday, when things are calmer, when we're not fighting Russian mobsters and corrupt officials. So never, Lily's voice was muffled against his chest. So soon, Isabella corrected. Because we're going to win these fights. One by one, we're going to win. They walked out into the Portland night, Lily between them, still chattering about flower girl dresses and proper petal-throwing technique. The city sprawled around them, full of shadows and light, danger and hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The trafficking routes through San Francisco that Anna had discovered. The expanding network of clean shipping companies willing to partner with Phoenix. The ongoing trials of Richard and his associates. The careful dance of keeping Lily safe while fighting battles that needed fighting. But tonight, they were just a family walking home from ice cream, a little girl's laughter echoing off buildings that had seen too much darkness, a promise of someday hanging in the air like hope. Isabella had started this journey seeking justice for her father, for the company he'd built, for the legacy that had been corrupted. She'd found that and more. A purpose, a family, a future worth fighting for. The war wasn't over, might never be truly over. But as Daniel's hand found hers, as Lily started skipping and singing a song about astronauts and heroes, Isabella knew they'd already won the battles that mattered most. They'd chosen love over fear, hope over despair, action over indifference. And tomorrow, they'd choose again. The call came at 3 a.m, 6 months after the ice cream conversation about marriage. Isabella reached for her phone, Daniel already awake beside her, both conditioned to expect the worst from late-night calls. Miss Carter. The voice was unfamiliar, official. This is Warden Davidson at the Federal Correctional Institution. I'm calling about Marcus Walker. Isabella sat up, dread pooling in her stomach. Is he dead? No, ma'am. But he's asked to see you. Says it's urgent about something called the Prometheus Network. He won't talk to anyone else. Daniel was already getting dressed, understanding without words that this mattered. Isabella grabbed clothes, her mind racing. Marcus hadn't reached out once since his conviction, maintaining his cooperation with authorities but refusing any contact with her. We'll be there within the hour, she told the warden. The drive to the federal facility was silent, except for the rain that seemed to follow every crucial moment in their story. Lily was safe with Mrs. Chen, a sleepover that had become routine when late-night emergencies arose. The 7-year-old had adapted to their unconventional life with remarkable resilience, understanding that sometimes heroes had to work at night. At the prison, they were escorted through multiple checkpoints to a medical ward. Marcus lay in a hospital bed, his face bearing fresh bruises from another attack. But his eyes were clear, urgent. Isabella. His voice was hoarse. Thank God you came. What's the Prometheus Network, Marcus? He looked at Daniel, then at the guard by the door. Can we have privacy? He stays, Isabella said firmly. Daniel's part of this, whatever it is. Marcus nodded slowly. The Prometheus Network is Richard's contingency plan, a system he built in case everything fell apart. I thought it died when he was convicted, but I've been hearing things. Other inmates with connections outside. It's active, and it's coming for you. What kind of system? Daniel's voice was tactical, already calculating threats. Think of it as a hydra. Cut off one head, Richard, and others grow. He spent years cultivating relationships with other trafficking organizations, creating a decentralized network that could survive without him. Marcus struggled to sit up. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is, who's running it now? Who? Isabella demanded. Claire. The name hit Isabella like a physical blow. Claire Walker, Richard's daughter, Marcus's sister, the cousin who'd been studying international law at Harvard, who'd sent flowers to her father's funeral, who'd seemed horrified by the family's crimes during the trial. That's impossible. Claire testified against Richard. She helped the FBI. It was all calculated, Marcus said. She gave them enough to convict Richard but kept herself clean. Now she's positioned as the victim of a corrupt father, above suspicion, with access to all the contacts and resources Richard hidden before his arrest. Daniel pulled out his phone, already texting Tommy and Agent Reed. How do you know this? Because she reached out to me. Wanted to know if I'd flip on the FBI, feed her information from the inside. When I refused. He gestured at his injuries. This was her response. We need to get you into protective custody, Isabella said. Marcus laughed bitterly. I'm in federal prison for trafficking children. There's no such thing as protective custody for someone like me. But that's not why I called you. He reached under his pillow, pulling out a small notebook. I've been documenting everything. Every contact who's reached out, every piece of information about the network. It's all here. Isabella took the notebook, flipping through pages of meticulous notes. Names, dates, shipping routes, financial transfers. It was a roadmap to dismantling the Prometheus network. Why? She asked. Why help us now? Because I've had a lot of time to think. About what we did. About the kids in those containers. Marcus's voice broke. I can't undo it. Can't bring back the ones who didn't survive. But maybe I can help stop it from happening to others. This is about redemption, Daniel observed. No, Marcus corrected. Redemption implies forgiveness. I don't deserve that. This is about choosing to do one right thing after a lifetime of wrong ones. Before they could respond, alarms began blaring. The guard at the door spoke urgently into his radio, then turned to them. We're in lockdown. There's been a breach. Daniel moved instantly into protective mode, positioning himself between Isabella and the door. What kind of breach? Armed intruders. Multiple casualties reported. The guard's face was pale. They're heading for the medical wing. They're coming for me, Marcus said with grim certainty. Claire doesn't leave loose ends. Daniel grabbed the guard's radio. This is former Navy SEAL Daniel Hayes. I need you to patch me through to your tactical response team. Sir, I can't. 3 armed intruders, probably ex-military, coming to assassinate a federal witness. You can either let me help or explain to the FBI why you let him die. Daniel's voice carried absolute authority. The guard handed over the radio. As Daniel coordinated with security, Isabella heard footsteps approaching, too measured, too purposeful to be guards responding to the alarm. She grabbed a medical IV pole, the only weapon available. Isabella, get behind the bed, Daniel ordered, producing a knife from somewhere. Even in civilian clothes, he was never truly unarmed. The door exploded inward. 3 men in tactical gear entered, weapons raised. Daniel moved before they could fully process the room, his knife finding the gap in the first man's armor at the neck. The man dropped, but the other 2 were already adjusting, their training evident. Isabella swung the IV pole at the second intruder's weapon, knocking his aim off as he fired. The bullets shattered the window behind them. Daniel used the distraction to close distance, grappling with the man for control of the gun. The third intruder aimed at Marcus, but Isabella threw herself across her cousin, the notebook still clutched in her hand. She heard the shot, felt the heat of the bullet passing inches from her head. Then Tommy was there, appearing in the doorway like an avenging angel, his own weapon barking twice. The third intruder went down. Daniel finished choking out the second, letting the unconscious body fall. Always cutting it close, Danny, Tommy said, scanning for additional threats. You love the drama, Daniel replied, checking Isabella for injuries. You okay? She nodded, though her hands shook. Marcus stared at her in shock. You saved me. After everything I did, you saved me. Your family, Isabella said simply. Family's complicated, but it's still family. Federal agents flooded the medical wing, Reed among them. She took in the scene, 3 unconscious or dead intruders, a protected witness, and civilians who'd once again done her job for her. We need to move him, Reed said. Safe house, full protection until he can testify about this Prometheus network. He's given us everything, Isabella said, handing over the notebook. Names, routes, connections, Claire Walker's running it all. Reed's expression darkened. Claire Walker is currently at a charity gala in Boston, surrounded by hundreds of witnesses. She's been there all evening. Perfect alibi, Daniel said. She's learned from her father's mistakes. As paramedics treated Marcus and crime scene units processed the room, Isabella found herself on the prison's roof with Daniel and Tommy, the 3 of them looking out over the dark landscape. This changes everything, Tommy said. Claire's not some thug. She's smart, connected, and completely ruthless. She's also made a mistake, Daniel pointed out. She showed her hand too early. Now we know she exists. Isabella's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. Hello, cousin. Claire's voice was cultured, pleasant, nothing like the monster she'd revealed herself to be. I heard there was some trouble at the prison. Is Marcus all right? You know exactly how Marcus is, Isabella said. Do I? I'm at a charity gala, Isabella. Hundreds of witnesses. Whatever happened tonight has nothing to do with me. Claire's tone shifted, harder now. But let me be clear. Phoenix Shipping has been interfering with established business relationships. That needs to stop. Never. Then you'll face the consequences. Your boy Daniel has a daughter, doesn't he? 7 years old. Such a vulnerable age. Daniel's expression turned lethal, but Isabella grabbed his arm, keeping him grounded. If you touch Lily, I won't touch anyone, Claire interrupted. I'm a law student, remember? But the world is dangerous, Isabella. Accidents happen. Children disappear. Sometimes the only way to keep them safe is to stop making enemies. The line went dead. Daniel was already calling Mrs. Chen, his voice tight with controlled panic. Isabella heard the elderly woman's confused response, then Daniel's relief. Keep her inside. Tommy's coming to get both of you. Tommy left immediately, his car peeling out of the prison parking lot. Daniel turned to Isabella, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Genuine fear. She threatened Lily. We'll protect her, Isabella promised. We'll stop Claire before she can... How? She's got alibis, lawyers, respectability. She's everything Richard wasn't, smart enough to stay clean while running dirty operations. Agent Reed appeared on the roof. We've got a problem. Claire Walker's lawyers just filed an injunction against Phoenix Shipping, claiming defamation and harassment. She's also filed for a restraining order against you, Isabella. She's using the legal system as a weapon, Isabella realized. While running an illegal network in the shadows, Reed confirmed. We can't touch her without proof, and Marcus's testimony alone won't be enough. We need concrete evidence linking her to the Prometheus network. Isabella thought of Lily, probably asleep at Mrs. Chen's, trusting that the adults in her life would keep her safe. She thought of the 17 drawings the little girl had made, of ice cream conversations about marriage, of a future that Claire now threatened. Then we get evidence, Isabella said. We play her game, but better. Over the next week, they transformed Phoenix Shipping's office into a war room. Anna coordinated with her network of survivors, gathering intelligence about new trafficking routes. Reed's FBI team provided resources and protection. Daniel and Tommy established a security perimeter that turned the warehouse into a fortress. Lily, for her part, adapted with remarkable grace to the new reality. She attended school with a plainclothes FBI agent posing as a teaching assistant. She couldn't go to the park without Tommy or Daniel watching from nearby. She accepted it all with the matter-of-fact resilience of a child who'd already lost one parent and refused to be broken by fear. Are we hiding from bad guys? She asked one evening as Daniel checked the locks for the 3rd time. We're being careful, he said. Because of the lady who called? The one who made you use your scary voice? Daniel knelt beside his daughter. Yes, but we're going to stop her. Good, because Emma invited me to her birthday party next month, and I already picked out a present. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Anna had been monitoring shipping manifests through their industry connections when she noticed an anomaly. A series of containers scheduled to move through Portland, all with paperwork that was technically correct, but followed patterns she recognized from her trafficking days. "Look at this," she told Isabella, highlighting routes on a digital map. "These containers are all scheduled for the same ship, but they're coming from different companies. Companies that didn't exist 6 months ago." "Shell corporations," Isabella said. "Claire's building a new network." But here's the interesting part. Anna pulled up financial records. The payments all route through a single bank in the Caymans. The same bank Richard used, but a different account, opened 2 weeks after his conviction. "That's our link," Daniel said. "We prove Claire controls that account. We prove she's running the network." "Easier said than done," Reed pointed out. "Cayman banks don't exactly cooperate with law enforcement." "No," Isabella agreed, "but they do cooperate with their biggest clients, and Phoenix Shipping just became very interested in offshore banking." The plan was dangerous in its simplicity. Isabella would travel to the Caymans, ostensibly to establish Phoenix's own offshore accounts. While there, she'd use her connections and reputation to get close to the bank's management, hopefully close enough to gather evidence about Claire's activities. "Absolutely not," Daniel said when she proposed it. "You're not going alone into Claire's financial territory." "I won't be alone." Reed's arranging diplomatic coverage. The FBI will have assets on the ground. The FBI had assets at the prison too. How'd that work out? "Daniel, Isabella took his hands. "We can't keep playing defense. Every day Claire's network operates, more people suffer, more kids end up in containers. I know, He pulled her close. "I can't lose you. Neither can Lily. You won't. Besides, I'll have my guardian angel watching over me, won't I?" "Always," he promised. 3 days later, Isabella stood in the opulent lobby of the Cayman International Bank, dressed in designer clothes that projected wealth and confidence. Behind her, a man in a casual business suit read a newspaper, one of Reed's agents, though you'd never know it. "Ms. Carter," the bank manager, William Thornton, greeted her warmly. "We're so pleased Phoenix Shipping is considering our services." "Well, after recent events in Portland, I've realized the importance of diversifying our financial infrastructure," Isabella said, playing the role of a CEO learning to be pragmatic. "Of course. The situation with your uncle was unfortunate." "Criminal," Isabella corrected, "which is why I'm here. Phoenix Shipping will never be associated with such activities. We need banking partners who share our commitment to legitimacy." Thornton's smile was practiced. "Naturally. All our clients value discretion and legality." For 2 days, Isabella played the game. Dinners with bank executives, tours of their facilities, discussions about money management that danced around the edges of impropriety without crossing lines. She was beginning to think the trip was a waste when Thornton made a mistake. "You know," he said over drinks on the second evening, "your cousin was here just last week." Isabella kept her expression neutral. "Marcus? I thought he was in federal custody." No. "Claire. Lovely young woman, very sharp. She's establishing quite an impressive import-export business. I wasn't aware Claire was in business." Isabella sipped her wine carefully. "Last I heard she was finishing law school." "Oh, she is. But she's also very entrepreneurial, much like yourself, actually. Taking over after family difficulties, building something new from the ashes. I'd love to connect with her. Families should support each other in business, don't you think?" Thornton's eyes glinted. "I couldn't agree more. In fact, I believe there might be opportunities for collaboration between Phoenix Shipping and Claire's ventures." "What kind of ventures?" "Import/export, as I said. Specialty goods from Eastern Europe. Very profitable, very discreet." Isabella felt her phone vibrate. Daniel's emergency signal. She excused herself, stepping onto the restaurant's terrace to answer. "Lily's school just called." Daniel's voice was tight. "Someone tried to pick her up, claiming to be your assistant." The FBI agent intervened, but Claire's escalating. "I'm coming home." "No, we're okay. Lily's safe. But Isabella, Claire knows you're in the Caymans. She's going to assume you're getting close. Then I need to get closer faster. She returned to Thornton, who was just drunk enough to be careless. William, I've been thinking. If Claire and I were to collaborate, I'd need to understand her business model. Perhaps you could arrange an introduction to her financial structures. That would be irregular. Phoenix Shipping is prepared to move significant capital through your bank, hundreds of millions over the next year. But I need to know my potential partners are solid. Greed won over caution. Thornton stood, swaying slightly. Come, I'll show you something that might interest you. He led her back to the bank, using his executive access to enter after hours. In his office, he pulled up account information on his computer. Claire Walker's company, Prometheus Imports, has moved $40 million through our systems in 6 months. Clean money, properly documented, taxes paid. He scrolled through transactions, but the volume suggests significant backing, the kind of backing that values discretion above all. Isabella memorized the account numbers, the transaction patterns, the shell companies listed as partners. Her phone, recording in her pocket, captured Thornton's proud explanation of how the bank facilitated such movements while maintaining plausible deniability. It's quite elegant, he said. Your cousin has learned from her father's mistakes. Everything appears legitimate on the surface. But underneath? Thornton winked. Underneath is where the real money flows. Surely you understand that, Miss Carter. No one builds an empire entirely in the light. No, Isabella agreed. But some shadows are darker than others. She left the bank with enough evidence to establish the connection between Claire and the Prometheus network, but not enough to prove what was really being transported. For that, they'd need more. The flight back to Portland felt endless. Isabella listened to the recording repeatedly, analyzing every word, every implication. When she landed, Daniel was waiting at the airport with Tommy, both armed, both scanning for threats. Lily was her first word. Safe. Mrs. Chen took her to her sister's farm outside the city. FBI's watching, but it's better than keeping her in Portland. They drove straight to the FBI field office, where Reed waited with her team. Isabella played the recording, showed the photos she'd managed to take of Thornton's computer screen. It's good, Reed said, but not enough. We can prove Claire owns Prometheus Imports, but not what she's importing. Then we follow the containers, Isabella said. Anna identified the patterns. We know when they're arriving. We intercept them. If we move too early, Claire disappears. If we move too late, people die. Daniel studied the shipping manifests. There's another option. We let the containers through, but we track them. See where they go, who receives them. Build a complete picture of the network. That means letting potential victims stay in danger longer, Isabella protested. It means saving more in the long run, Daniel countered. Claire's smart. If we take down one shipment, she'll adapt, but if we map her entire network, we can destroy it all at once, Reed finished. It's risky, but it might be our only shot. The next 2 weeks were torture. Knowing containers were moving through Portland, potentially carrying human cargo, but unable to act without destroying their larger operation. Isabella threw herself into maintaining Phoenix's legitimate operations while secretly coordinating with Reed's surveillance teams. Daniel spent his days providing security and his nights unable to sleep, standing guard at windows, checking and rechecking locks. The strain showed in the lines around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. You need to rest, Isabella told him one night, finding him on the apartment balcony at 3 a.m. I'll rest when Claire's in custody. Lily needs you functional, not exhausted. Lily needs to be safe. He turned to her, and she saw the weight he carried. Every night I dream about Sarah, about not being there when she needed me. I can't. I won't let that happen again. Isabella wrapped her arms around him, feeling the tremors he fought to control. We're going to win this. Claire made a mistake coming after Lily. She made it personal. That's what scares me. Personal means emotional. Emotional means mistakes. Or it means we fight harder than ever. The breaking point came from Marcus again. Transferred to a secure facility, he reached out through official channels with new intelligence. Claire was planning something big, a massive shipment that would establish Prometheus Imports as a major player in the trafficking world. 3 ships, Marcus's message read. 50 containers total. At least 300 people. It's her coming out party, proving she's exceeded Richard's operation. Isabella stared at the numbers. 300 people. Children, teenagers, adults, all commodified, all facing horrible fates if the shipment succeeded. When? Reed demanded during the emergency meeting. 4 days. They'll load at night, ship out on the morning tide. Isabella pulled up the port schedules. But here's the thing, she's using Walker Maritime's old berths, the ones Richard controlled. She's making a statement, Daniel realized, showing the old network that the Walkers are still in power, just under new management. Tommy leaned forward. 3 ships is too many to cover covertly. If we're going to stop this, we need an army. Or, Anna said quietly, we need to make Claire come to us. Everyone turned to her. Anna continued, Claire's careful because she's invisible. But what if we made her visible? What if we forced her to show herself? How? Reed asked. Isabella understood immediately. We outbid her. Whatever she's paying for those containers, Phoenix offers more. Force her to come to Portland to protect her investment. That's insane, Reed said. You'd be putting a target on your back. There's already a target on my back. At least this way, we choose the battlefield. Daniel was already shaking his head, but Isabella could see him thinking tactically, working through scenarios. If we do this, he said finally, we do it right. Full tactical support, every advantage we can create. Agreed, Reed said. I'll need to bring in additional resources. Coast Guard, DEA, maybe even Homeland Security. Do it, Isabella said. In 4 days, we end this. The next 96 hours blurred together. Isabella, working through intermediaries, made it known that Phoenix Shipping was willing to pay premium prices for special cargo, implying she'd decided to embrace her family's criminal legacy. The bait was too tempting for Claire to ignore. Sure enough, within 24 hours, Claire called. I heard you've had a change of heart about the family business. Her cousin's voice was amused. I've had a change of heart about profitability, Isabella replied. Phoenix needs resources to grow. If that means moving special containers, so be it. How pragmatic. Richard would be proud. Richard's in prison. I'm interested in the future, not the past. Then let's discuss the future. Face to face. Tomorrow night, Pier 19. Come alone. I'll be there. After hanging up, Isabella turned to the assembled team. She took the bait. It's a trap, Daniel said immediately. Of course it's a trap, but so is ours. They spent the remaining time preparing. Reed positioned agents throughout the port. Tommy coordinated with his military contacts, bringing in off-the-book support. Anna worked with her network, ensuring they'd have eyes on every container, every ship. Daniel focused on protecting Isabella, creating layers of security that would be invisible until needed. He also made a call Isabella didn't expect. Who was that? She asked. Lily. I needed to hear her voice. What did you tell her? That tomorrow night, we're going to finish fighting the bad guys. That after tomorrow, she can come home. You promised her? I promised her I'd try. She said that was enough. The night of the meeting, Portland's port felt electric with tension. Isabella stood at the entrance to Pier 19, wearing a wire, a bulletproof vest, and the kind of determination that had carried her this far. Phoenix 1 in position, she said into her comm. Overwatch confirmed, Daniel's voice responded. He was positioned on a container crane with a sniper rifle, their old battlefield roles reversed. Tactical team standing by, Reed added. Isabella walked onto the pier. The 3 ships loomed in their berths, already being loaded with containers. She could see workers moving, forklifts operating, the machinery of trafficking disguised as legitimate commerce. Claire emerged from between containers, dressed in an elegant business suit that belonged in a boardroom, not a darkened pier. She wasn't alone. 6 men flanked her, all armed, all professional. Cousin, Claire said warmly, I'm so glad you've come to your senses. I've come to understand reality, Isabella replied. Phoenix Shipping needs to grow. You need legitimate transport. We can help each other. Can we? Because I heard you were in the Caymans recently, asking questions about my finances. I was establishing my own offshore accounts, though I did hear about your impressive operation. Claire smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You were always a terrible liar, Isabella. Just like your father. The words hung between them. Isabella felt the tension ratchet higher, knew the moment was approaching when pretense would fall away. My father was a good man, Isabella said. Your father was weak. He discovered our operation and threatened to destroy it all for principles, for morality. Claire laughed. Where did that morality get him? A grave. While Richard and I built an empire. You killed him. You and Richard. Richard killed him. I just made sure he wouldn't be caught. The poison was elegant, undetectable unless you knew exactly what to look for. Claire stepped closer. Just like the poison I had put in Lily Hayes's juice box this morning. Isabella's blood froze. Daniel's voice exploded in her ear, but Claire raised a hand. Relax, she hasn't drunk it yet. It's timed for lunch tomorrow. A tragedy, young girl dies of allergic reaction at school. Unless what? Unless you sign Phoenix Shipping over to me. Right now, I have the papers prepared. You sign Little Lily Lives. You refuse. Isabella heard Daniel moving, abandoning his position. She had seconds before everything exploded into violence. You're lying, Isabella said. Lily's not at school. She's protected. Claire's smile widened. Emma Chen's birthday party. The one Lily insisted on attending despite the danger. Children are so predictable. Horror washed over Isabella. Lily had gone to the party just for an hour with FBI protection. But if Claire had gotten to the juice boxes in advance... Tactical teams, move in, Reed's voice commanded. But Claire was already moving, her men forming a protective wall as she retreated toward a waiting boat. Gunfire erupted across the pier. Isabella dove behind a container as bullets sparked off steel around her. Daniel, get to Lily, she shouted into her comm. Tommy's already en route, Reed responded. Isabella, get to cover. But Isabella wasn't interested in cover. She was interested in Claire. Her cousin was escaping, heading for the boat that would take her to international waters. Without thinking, Isabella ran after her. She tackled Claire just as she reached the boat's edge. They went down hard, rolling across wet concrete. Claire was stronger than she looked, fighting with vicious precision. They grappled for control, Claire's manicured nails raking across Isabella's face, drawing blood. You always were too principled, Claire gasped, managing to get on top, her hands wrapping around Isabella's throat. Just like your father. And just like him, you'll die for it. Isabella's vision started to gray, but then Claire's weight was gone. Daniel had arrived, pulling Claire off and restraining her with zip ties in seconds. Lily! Isabella gasped. Safe! Tommy got there. The juice boxes were clean. She was bluffing. Claire laughed from where she lay restrained. Was I? Are you sure? How many juice boxes in that school? How many children? The implication hit them all at once. It might not be Lily, but Claire might have poisoned someone. A random child, as an example. All units, we need hazmat at Madison Elementary immediately, Reed commanded. Full evacuation, treat all food products as potentially contaminated. But Anna's voice cut through the chaos. Wait. I've been monitoring the school's security cameras through the FBI feed. No one's accessed the cafeteria outside of normal staff in the last week. You're sure? Reed demanded. Positive. Claire's bluffing. It's psychological warfare, nothing more. Isabella stood slowly, looking down at her cousin. You're done, Claire. The network, the trafficking, all of it. Am I? Claire smiled even while restrained. You've caught me, but the Prometheus network is bigger than one person. Cut off one head. And others grow back, Isabella finished, except we've mapped them all. Every contact, every route, every collaborator. Your entire network is being rolled up as we speak. As if to emphasize her point, the sound of helicopters filled the air. Coast Guard, FBI, DEA, all converging on the 3 ships. The containers would be opened, the victims freed, the network destroyed. Claire's composure finally cracked. You can't. Do you have any idea who you're challenging? The people who will come after you? Let them come, Daniel said. We've gotten pretty good at stopping monsters. The courtroom was packed for Claire Walker's sentencing, 6 months after her arrest at Pier 19. Isabella sat in the gallery between Daniel and Anna, watching her cousin maintain that same cold composure even as the judge read a litany of charges that would put her away for life. Behind them, dozens of survivors filled the benches, their presence a silent testament to the scope of Claire's crimes. On the 47 counts of human trafficking, I sentence you to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole, the judge declared. On the 12 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, including the murder of James Carter, Isabella felt Daniel's hand find hers as her father's name was spoken in court. The investigation had finally proven what Marcus had revealed. Claire had been the architect of her father's murder, the one who'd sourced the undetectable poison while Richard provided the opportunity. Claire stood as the bailiffs approached with shackles. For a moment, her eyes met Isabella's across the courtroom. "This isn't over," she mouthed silently. Then she was gone, led away to join her father in federal prison, the Walker criminal empire finally destroyed, or so everyone believed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Isabella had prepared a statement, but before she could speak, a small hand tugged at her jacket. "Isabella, can we go home now?" Lily asked. The 8-year-old had insisted on coming, saying she needed to see the bad lady go to jail. "Daddy promised we could have pizza after." "Of course, sweetheart," Isabella said, abandoning the reporters without a second thought. As they walked to Daniel's truck, Tommy fell into step beside them, ever watchful even though the primary threat was supposedly gone. "You see that man in the gray suit?" he said quietly. "Third time I've spotted him this week." Daniel glanced casually in the indicated direction. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit stood by a black sedan, apparently talking on his phone, but his eyes tracked their movement. "Government?" Daniel asked. "Wrong posture for FBI, maybe State Department." Their answer came that evening. As they sat in Daniel's apartment, Lily doing homework while the adults reviewed Phoenix Shipping's latest legitimate contracts, there was a knock at the door. Daniel checked the security camera, then frowned. "It's that man from the courthouse." He opened the door carefully, ready for anything. The man in the gray suit stood there, holding official credentials. "Mr. Hayes, Miss Carter, I'm Director James Mitchell from the State Department's Office of International Criminal Justice. May I come in?" They exchanged glances, then Daniel stepped aside. Mitchell entered, his eyes taking in everything. The comfortable domesticity, Lily's homework spread on the coffee table, the subtle security measures. "Ms. Hayes," he said to Lily, with a gentle smile, "would you mind if I spoke with your father and Miss Carter privately?" "Are you a bad guy?" Lily asked directly. "I hope not. I try to catch bad guys just like your father." Lily studied him with those serious eyes, then gathered her homework. "I'll be in my room. But if you upset my dad or Isabella, I know where Daddy keeps the pepper spray." After she left, Mitchell's demeanor shifted to all business. The Prometheus network extended far beyond Portland. Claire Walker's arrest has created a power vacuum in international trafficking circles. "Good," Isabella said. "Not entirely. When power vacuums occur, they're filled by something worse. We're already seeing Eastern European syndicates moving to claim the West Coast routes. Mexican cartels are expanding northward. The fragmentation is creating chaos, and in that chaos, more people are suffering." "What does that have to do with us?" Daniel asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. "Phoenix Shipping has developed a reputation. You're known as incorruptible, with proven ability to identify and stop trafficking operations. The State Department wants to formalize that relationship." Mitchell pulled out a folder, sliding it across to Isabella. "We want Phoenix to become part of an international anti-trafficking initiative. You'd maintain your legitimate shipping business, but you'd also work with us to monitor and intercept suspicious cargo globally." "You want us to be spies," Daniel said flatly. "I want you to be what you already are, protectors, but with resources, backing, and international authority." Isabella opened the folder, scanning the proposal. It was comprehensive. Funding, diplomatic protection, access to international law enforcement databases, everything they'd need to expand their fight beyond Portland. "This is dangerous," she said. "We'd be making enemies of every trafficking organization in the world." "You already have. The only question is whether you'll fight them with our support or alone." "We need time to consider," Daniel started. "There isn't time." Mitchell's composure cracked slightly. "In 72 hours, a ship carrying 200 trafficking victims will leave Singapore. We know it's coming to the West Coast, but not where. Phoenix Shipping has contracts in Singapore. You could have someone there tomorrow, legally, with authority to inspect cargo. 200 people, Anna said quietly. She'd been silent until now, but the number had affected her visibly. Children. At least half, according to our intelligence. Isabella looked at Daniel, saw the same thought in his eyes. They couldn't walk away from 200 victims to maintain their safety. We'll need a team, Isabella said. Whatever you need. And protection for Lily. Non-negotiable. Already arranged. We've had a security detail on her since Claire's arrest. You just haven't noticed them. Daniel's jaw tightened. You've been watching my daughter without permission? We've been protecting your daughter without announcing it. There's a difference. Mitchell stood. The Singapore flight leaves in 8 hours. Yes or no? Isabella thought about her father, about the company he'd built to connect the world through honest trade. She thought about the 17 drawings Lily had made of heroes, about the survivors working at Phoenix who'd turned trauma into purpose. Yes, she said. Daniel nodded his agreement, though she could see the weight of it in his eyes. They were crossing a line from reactive defense to proactive offense, from local heroes to international operators. I'll need to go with her, Daniel said, to Singapore. What about Lily? Mrs. Chen and Tommy can watch her. She'll be safer here with Mitchell's people than anywhere near us. The goodbye at the airport was harder than any of them expected. Lily clung to Daniel, then to Isabella, her usual bravery cracking. You're both going. Together? Just for a few days, Bug, Daniel promised. Tommy and Mrs. Chen will take good care of you. I don't want Tommy and Mrs. Chen. I want you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. What if you don't come back? Like Mommy didn't come back? Isabella knelt beside her, pulling the little girl into a fierce hug. We're coming back. Both of us. I promise. You can't promise that. Bad things happen even when people promise. Lily's voice was muffled against Isabella's shoulder. You're right, Daniel said, joining the embrace. We can't promise nothing bad will happen, but we can promise to fight as hard as possible to come home. And we can promise that you're the reason we fight. Tommy lifted Lily onto his shoulders, trying to lighten the moment. Besides, kiddo, you're stuck with me for 3 days. I'm going to teach you all my best moves. The legal ones, right? Daniel said with mock sternness. Mostly legal, Tommy grinned. As their plane lifted off, Isabella saw Daniel watching the ground fall away, his hand gripping the armrest. She covered his hand with hers. She'll be okay. I know, it's just, this is the first time I've left her since Sarah died. I promised myself I'd always be there. You are always there. Even when you're physically distant, you're the voice in her head telling her to be brave, to be kind, to fight for what's right. The flight to Singapore felt endless despite being direct. They used the time to study Mitchell's intelligence files. The ship in question was registered to a shell company that traced back through 7 jurisdictions before disappearing into the void. But the loading patterns, the personnel involved, the route planned, everything screamed human trafficking. The manifest says agricultural equipment, Isabella noted. Same cover story Richard used. These organizations aren't creative, Daniel observed. They find what works and repeat it until someone stops them. Singapore's port was a marvel of efficiency, handling more cargo than almost anywhere else on Earth. Their Phoenix shipping credentials got them through security, and Mitchell's contacts provided additional access. The ship, Eastern Promise, sat at berth 15, a rust-stained cargo vessel that had seen better decades. Containers were being loaded by crews that moved too quickly, too nervously. They know we're here, Daniel said, observing from their position in a port control tower. Look at their body language. He was right. The loading crew kept glancing around, their movements jerky with paranoia. Someone leaked our arrival, Isabella realized. Before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number with a photo attachment. The image showed Lily at school in Portland, taken from distance with a telephoto lens. The message read, "Inspect the ship and she disappears." Daniel went very still, the kind of stillness that preceded violence. Isabella grabbed his arm. It's a bluff. Mitchell's people are watching her. Are they? Or is Mitchell playing his own game? Daniel was already calling Tommy. "Everything's fine here, Danny," Tommy answered immediately. "Lily's at school, I'm outside, and I count 3 of Mitchell's people in positions. No threats. Someone just sent a photo of her. Recent. On it." Tommy's voice shifted to operational mode. "I'm pulling her out now. We'll go dark until you're back." Isabella made a decision. "We inspect the ship anyway." "Isabella, if we back down now, they'll know threatening Lily works. They'll do it every time." She met his eyes. "We have to show them that threatening her only makes us more dangerous, not less." Daniel struggled with it, torn between father and operator, protector and warrior. Finally, he nodded. "But we do this fast." In and out. They approached the Eastern Promise with a small team of Singapore port security who'd been briefed by Mitchell's contacts. The ship's captain, a weather-beaten Romanian, met them at the gangway. "This is harassment," he protested. "We have all proper documentation." "Then you won't mind us confirming that," Isabella said, pushing past him. The ship reeked of rust, oil, and something else, fear. It permeated the metal corridors as they descended toward the cargo holds. The crew watched them with hollow eyes, men who'd seen too much and chosen to see nothing. They found the first container 3 levels down. The manifest said it held farming equipment, but the temperature controls were set for human survival. Daniel placed his hand on the metal, feeling the vibration of movement inside. "Open it," Isabella commanded. The captain protested. His first mate argued about liability, but the Singapore port security had authority. The container doors swung open. The smell hit them first: unwashed bodies, human waste, desperation. Then their eyes adjusted to the darkness inside, and Isabella saw them. Dozens of people, mostly teenagers, packed into a space meant for cargo. They blinked in the sudden light, some crying, others too exhausted for tears. "Medical teams now," Daniel barked into his radio. What followed was controlled chaos. More containers were opened, revealing more victims. The Singapore authorities arrested the crew while medical teams triaged victims. Isabella found herself holding a girl who couldn't have been older than 14, whispering reassurances in languages she didn't speak, but hoping the tone translated. "Isabella." Daniel appeared at her shoulder. "We have a problem." She followed him to the bridge, where the captain was in custody but smiling. "You think you've won," he said. "You saved these ones, but 3 more ships left while you were playing hero here. 3 more ships you'll never find because you showed your hand." Isabella felt the weight of partial victory, the cost of saving some while others sailed toward horror. But Daniel stepped forward, his voice carrying deadly certainty. 3 ships. The Morning Star bound for Los Angeles, the Neptune's Dream headed to Vancouver, and the Jade Phoenix going to Seattle. The captain's smile faltered. "How does—" "Because while you were watching us, we were watching you." Every communication, every transaction, every contact. Daniel pulled out his phone, showing intercepted messages. "Your employers thought they were smart, using you as a sacrifice to protect the larger operation, but you all used the same communication protocols, the same code words." It was a bluff, partially. They had some intelligence, but not enough. Yet the captain didn't know that, and his expression cracked. "If I talk, they kill me." "If you don't talk, you die in prison anyway," Isabella said. "At least this way, you die having done one good thing." The captain broke, providing routes, contacts, timelines. Within an hour, international authorities were moving on all 3 ships. It wasn't perfect. One ship would dump its human cargo and claim innocence, but 2 were intercepted. Another 400 people saved. That night, in their Singapore hotel, Daniel got the call from Tommy he'd been dreading. "Someone tried to grab her, Danny." "Outside the school, professional team. We stopped them, but it was close." Daniel went white. Isabella took the phone. "Is she hurt?" "Scared but safe. We're at the backup location. But Danny, whoever these people are, they're not playing. This was a real attempt." "We're coming home," Daniel said, already packing. "No." The voice was Lily's, having taken the phone from Tommy. "Daddy, no. There are more bad guys there, right? More kids like in the containers?" "Lily, if you come home, they win. The bad guys win. I'm scared, but I'm safe with Tommy and Mrs. Chen. You need to finish the job." Isabella watched Daniel struggle with the impossible choice, father or hero, protector of one or savior of many. Bug, I can't. Yes, you can. Because I'm brave like you taught me. And Isabella needs you there. She can't fight all the bad guys alone. I can put her on a plane, Tommy said, taking the phone back. Military transport to a base where no one can touch her. Do it, Daniel decided. Keep her safe, Tommy. With my life, brother. They spent another week in Singapore working with local authorities to dismantle the trafficking network's Asian hub. Every day brought new intelligence, new targets, small victories measured in lives saved. But every night, Daniel stood by the window looking west toward Portland, toward his daughter. She's strong, Isabella said one night, joining him. She shouldn't have to be. She's 8 years old. She should be worried about homework and friends, not whether her father will come home. But she understands why you do this. That little girl understands heroism better than most adults. Understanding doesn't make it easier for her. No, Isabella agreed, but it makes it meaningful. Their phone rang. Mitchell. We have a situation. Claire Walker was attacked in prison. She's alive, but barely. She's asking for Isabella. They looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. Trap or opportunity? Why would she ask for me? Isabella asked. She says she has information about who's trying to take Lily. Information she'll only share with you. Daniel was already heading for the door. We're going back. The flight home was tense, both of them knowing they were probably walking into another game, but unable to ignore the possibility that Claire had real intelligence about the threat to Lily. They went straight from the airport to the federal prison's medical ward, where Claire lay surrounded by machines keeping her alive. Her face was swollen beyond recognition, her body broken by an attack that had been meant to kill. Isabella, she wheezed through damaged vocal cords. I'm here. They came for me because I failed. The Prometheus network. It was never mine. Isabella leaned closer. Whose was it? The architect. That's all I know. Someone above Richard, above me, above everyone. We were just middle management. Claire coughed, blood speckling her lips. They're cleaning house. Everyone who failed, everyone who got caught, then they'll rebuild. Who's the architect? I don't know. Richard might have known, but he never told me. But Isabella, Claire's hand found hers, grip weak but desperate. They want Lily because of what she represents. What does she represent? Hope. You and Daniel, Phoenix Shipping, the survivors you employ, you're showing people that resistance is possible, that the trafficking networks can be fought. The architect can't allow that symbol to exist. So they target an 8-year-old girl. They target the heart of your resistance. Break Daniel by taking Lily. Break you by destroying Daniel. Claire's eyes, one swollen shut, held something Isabella had never seen there. Regret. I was evil, Isabella. I know that, but even I wouldn't have hurt a child that way. You threatened her. You said you'd poisoned. A bluff, always a bluff. I'm a monster, but not that kind of monster. Claire's breathing became more labored. There's a safe deposit box, Bank of America, downtown Portland. Box 1247. Richard's real files. Maybe something about the architect. Why are you helping us? Because I'm dying. And maybe one good act can't redeem a lifetime of evil, but it's better than nothing. The machines began alarming. Medical staff rushed in, pushing Isabella and Daniel back. They worked frantically, but Claire's injuries were too severe. She died looking at Isabella, that expression of regret frozen on her battered face. Outside the medical ward, Daniel pulled Isabella close. She could have been lying. About the architect? Maybe. But not about the reason they want Lily. Isabella felt the truth of it. They'd become symbols of resistance, and symbols were dangerous to criminal empires built on fear and hopelessness. They retrieved the safe deposit box that afternoon. Inside were documents that painted a picture of a vast criminal network, one that made the Walkers look like small-time operators. References to the architect appeared throughout, but never with identifying information, just a shadow directing operations across continents. This is bigger than we imagined, Daniel said, studying shipping routes that covered the globe. The architect isn't running a trafficking network. They're running multiple networks, all compartmentalized, all feeding into some larger purpose. Then we keep fighting, Isabella said, one network at a time. They'll keep coming for Lily. Then we protect her while we fight. They picked up Lily from the military base that evening. She ran to them, all 8-year-old energy and relief, her fears forgotten in the joy of reunion. Did you stop the bad guys in Singapore? Some of them, Daniel said, holding her tight. Good. Tommy taught me self-defense while you were gone. Want to see? She demonstrated a series of moves that were more enthusiasm than technique, but her determination was clear. This little girl who'd lost her mother, who'd been threatened by criminals, who'd spent a week in protective custody, was unbroken. Very fierce, Isabella said. No bad guy stands a chance. That night, they held a war council at Phoenix Shipping's office. Tommy, Anna, Reed, Mitchell, and a handful of others who'd become part of their extended network. The wall was covered with maps, photos, shipping routes, a visual representation of the enemy they faced. The architect is real, Mitchell confirmed. We've been tracking references for years but could never confirm existence. If Claire was telling the truth, this is the first real lead we've had. So we follow it, Isabella said. We use Phoenix Shipping to monitor routes, identify patterns, build a picture of the architect's operations. That makes Phoenix a target, Reed pointed out. More than it already is. Then we become a harder target, Daniel said. We expand security, create redundancies, make ourselves too expensive to attack directly. Anna had been quiet, studying the documents from Richard's safe deposit box. Suddenly she gasped. This routing code. I've seen it before. Everyone turned to her. When I was trafficked, they gave us numbers. Mine was RH447. I thought it was random, but look. She pointed to shipping manifests. Every container with human cargo has a similar code. It's not random. It's a classification system. They're categorizing people, Isabella realized with horror. Like inventory. More than that, Anna continued, her analytical mind working through the pattern. These codes indicate destination, purpose, even pricing. The architect isn't just trafficking people, they're running a global human inventory system. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't crime. It was industrialized evil. Then we destroy the system, Daniel said quietly. Every piece of it. That could take years, Mitchell warned. Decades even. Then we'd better get started, Isabella said. Over the following months, Phoenix Shipping evolved from a regional shipping company with a conscience to an international force against trafficking. They opened offices in Los Angeles, Seattle, Vancouver, expanding their legitimate business while secretly mapping the architect's network. Lily grew from 8 to 9, adapting to their strange life with remarkable resilience. She attended school with discreet security, learned self-defense from Tommy, and somehow maintained the cheerful optimism that made her father's fights worthwhile. One evening, as Isabella helped her with homework while Daniel reviewed security reports, Lily asked, "Are we winning?" Isabella considered lying, providing the comfortable fiction that good always triumphed. But this child deserved truth. Sometimes, we save people, we stop shipments, we put bad guys in jail, but there are always more bad guys. So we'll never really win. Daniel looked up from his reports. We win every time someone gets home safe, every time a child isn't sold, every time we make the bad guys afraid to operate. But the big win? The one where all the bad guys are gone? Maybe that's not a win we achieve, Isabella said carefully. Maybe that's a win we work toward, knowing each generation gets a little closer. Lily considered this with 9-year-old wisdom. So we're like the people who started building cathedrals knowing they'd never see them finished? Where did you learn about that? Daniel asked. Mrs. Peterson taught us about medieval architecture. She said some cathedrals took hundreds of years to build. The people who started them knew they'd never see them done, but they started anyway because it was important. Yes, Isabella said, struck by the analogy. We're building a cathedral, a world where children are safe,